The question I asked was so ordinary that I was looking inside my refrigerator while I said it. What time should I get there for the rehearsal? Daniel went silent. I moved a jar of mustard and found the lemon I'd been looking for. Daniel? We told them you declined. I stood up too quickly and bumped my head on the freezer door. You told who I declined? Claire's parents. They needed the final number. For what? The dinner, Mom. I know what a rehearsal dinner is. I'm asking what you told them I declined. Another pause. In the background, I heard a cabinet slam and a man say something I couldn't make out. Daniel had been at his father's house, supposedly picking up cufflinks. 4 days before his wedding, he had time to drive across town for his father's cufflinks, but not enough time to finish a conversation with me. Mom, can I call you back? No, you can tell me what time the rehearsal is. You're not on the count anymore. I sat down at my kitchen table. My blue dress hung from the pantry door because that was the only place in the house where I could see the whole thing from a distance. I had spent the morning debating whether it needed shortening. Now it looked like somebody else's dress waiting in somebody else's kitchen. I was never on the count, was I? He breathed into the phone. That was my answer. Daniel had always been a poor liar in person. His left eyebrow rose as if part of his face was trying to escape. Over the phone, though, he could hide inside silence and let you do the lying for him. I said, "Who is we?" Claire and me. And when did Claire and you ask me? That's not exactly what I meant. I don't know how many ways there are to mean it. Can we please not turn this into a thing? There are sentences that tell you more than the person saying them intended. That was one. Not why I wasn't invited, not whether I wanted to come. The problem was that I might turn what he had done into a thing large enough for him to see. I looked at the legal pad beside me. I had written dry cleaner, card, shoes, and lemon in my careful block letters. Under that was a reminder to bring the sewing kit Claire had asked for on the wedding morning. Daniel, I want you to say plainly what happened. I knew this would upset you. You knew because you did something upsetting. It wasn't meant that way. How was it meant? I was trying to make the weekend easier. For whom? He gave a short, exhausted laugh, as if I were a customer disputing a cable bill. For everybody. I had heard everybody used that way before. It never included the person being asked to disappear. A door opened on his end. His voice changed at once. Yeah, Dad, I found them. Stephen said something, and Daniel answered, Top drawer, just like you said. My ex-husband had owned those cufflinks for 33 years. They were square, silver, and engraved with his initials. He had worn them exactly twice that I could remember, once to our wedding and once to an awards dinner where he spent the evening telling people I had chosen his tie. Sorry, Daniel said to me. Dad's looking for the box. Tell your father the box is green velvet. Daniel went quiet again. Some knowledge lives in your hands long after the rest of the marriage has been cleared away. He found it, Daniel said. Good. I really have to go. Is your father going to the rehearsal? Mom, is Linda? That's not relevant. It became hard to breathe without him hearing it. I turned my face away from the phone, which was ridiculous. He couldn't see me. That should have made things easier. Instead, I wanted him to see exactly what his sentence had done. Stephen and Linda had been married for 11 years. Linda was not the woman he left me for, though people often assumed she was, and I had corrected them more times than she knew. She was 63, wore perfume that arrived before she did, and had the unnerving habit of touching your forearm while disagreeing with you. We were not friends, but we had occupied the same rooms without bloodshed. At Daniel's college graduation, Linda and I had shared an umbrella while Stephen went to move the car. At Stephen's sister's funeral, I had found a safety pin for the back of Linda's dress. She had whispered, "You just saved my life," and I had said, "Let's not cheapen the word." She laughed so hard she had to redo her lipstick. So if Linda was going to this dinner and I wasn't, Relevance had already packed a suitcase and moved in. I asked you a question, I said. Yes, they're going. And you told Claire's parents I didn't want to? It wasn't like that. What was it like? Mom, you don't even enjoy these things. I stared at the refrigerator. There was a photograph held by a magnet shaped like a strawberry. Daniel and Claire at my dining table the Christmas before they got engaged, both wearing paper crowns from the crackers Claire had brought. Daniel's crown was sliding over one eye. He had one arm around Claire and the other stretched toward me, trying to pull me into the picture. I had stepped behind the camera instead. What things don't I enjoy? I asked. You know, formal dinners, sitting around with people you barely know. I spent 38 years sitting in insurance meetings, Daniel. I can make conversation with a lamp. That's not what I meant. It's becoming a crowded room, all these things you don't mean. He was quiet long enough that I heard Stephen laugh in another part of the house. I could picture the place. Stephen had remarried into a home with pale furniture and decorative towels nobody was allowed to use. Linda liked bowls filled with objects that weren't food. Every time I visited, I had the urge to put an onion in one. Daniel said, more softly, "It's just one dinner." There it was. The size of the wound explained to the person bleeding. I should tell you that I had not forced my way into Daniel's wedding. When he and Claire got engaged, I waited 3 full days before asking whether they had chosen a date. I did not send venue suggestions. I did not call Claire's mother, Ellen, to establish maternal territory. I did not say mother of the groom in the tone some women use when announcing a military rank. Claire came to me on her own about the table runner. She and Daniel were having coffee at my house one Sunday when she noticed a long cream runner folded over the back of a chair. My mother had made it from linen left over from curtains, then embroidered vines along the edges in thread that had faded from green to the soft gray of dried sage. "Could we use this for the welcome table?" Claire asked. Daniel had looked up from his phone. "That old thing?" Claire touched the embroidery with one finger. "It's beautiful." "It stains if you glare at it," I said. She smiled. "We'll keep red wine away from it." That was how I ended up repairing 6 inches of loose stitching, washing it by hand in my bathtub and pressing it between towels so the old fabric wouldn't shine. Claire offered to have it professionally cleaned. I said no because I knew exactly how much handling it could take. It wasn't a burden. I liked doing it. That distinction mattered to me even then. The previous Saturday, Claire had picked it up wearing exercise clothes and carrying 3 garment bags in the back of her car. She stood in my kitchen, ate half a banana, and told me the florist had changed the shade of the dinner napkins without asking. "They're calling it eucalyptus," she said. "It's gray. I'm paying $4 a piece for gray squares. You could let the guests wipe their mouths on money." I suggested that. My mother didn't laugh. Claire's mother was not humorless, but wedding planning had turned her into the temporary manager of a small nation under siege. Ellen had spreadsheets for the hotel bags, the ceremony transportation, and the breakfast nobody needed the morning after. She sent emails with subject lines like, final timeline, and then revised them twice. Claire draped the runner across my table and smoothed it. "It's perfect," she said. "Thank you. I'm glad it gets out of the house." She hugged me before she left. Claire wasn't usually an automatic hugger. She hugged when she meant it, with both arms and no little air pats. At the door, I said, "I'll see you Friday." She turned back. "Saturday. The rehearsal is Friday, isn't it?" Her face changed so quickly I almost missed it. Then she said, "Right. Sorry, my brain is gone." I had taken that for wedding fatigue. 4 days later, with Daniel breathing excuses into my phone, I understood that Claire had known something. Maybe not everything, but enough to make Saturday the day she expected to see me. "Put Claire on," I said. "She's not here, call her. I'm not dragging her into this. According to you, she's already in it. She has enough stress." I almost admired the arrangement. Claire got protection, Linda got comfort, Stephen got the family picture he wanted, Ellen got a clean head count. Daniel got to be the agreeable son, husband, and guest. I got a personality assigned to me. Easygoing Margaret, independent Margaret. Margaret hates fuss. Margaret understands. Margaret would rather stay home. The remarkable thing about being called understanding for most of your adult life is how often it means no one plans to explain anything to you. I said, "Did Claire tell you she didn't want me there?" "No." "Did Ellen?" "No." "Did Linda?" He exhaled. Not annoyance this time. Defeat. So we had finally reached the locked door. Daniel. Dad thought it might be tense. For him? For Linda? I waited for the rest. When it did not come, I asked, "What did Linda say?" "I don't know." Dad and I talked. Then Linda didn't say anything. Dad knows how she feels. And you know how I feel. That's different. How? Because you can handle it. I closed my eyes. He said it gently. That was the worst part. My son believed he was praising me. In the silence that followed, I could hear Stephen open another drawer and call Daniel's name, confident that Daniel would come. Daniel always came when his father called, maybe because Stephen had spent so many years making every appearance feel optional. "Mom, I'm sorry," Daniel said quickly. "I can talk to Ellen. Maybe they can add another chair." Another chair. Not my chair. An extra one. Brought in after the numbers were final, after the place cards were written, after everybody had been told I had declined. I looked at the blue dress hanging from the pantry door and imagined myself walking into that room while Ellen apologized for the crowded table. Claire would smile too brightly. Linda would touch my arm. Stephen would act surprised that there had ever been a problem. Daniel would watch me closely until I made the joke that released them all. I had done that for years, found the sentence that let everybody breathe. "Don't add a chair," I said. "What? You made the decision. I'm not going to help you pretend you didn't. Mom, come on. You told them I declined. Now you can live with what you told them." He lowered his voice. "Are you saying you're not coming to the wedding?" "No, I'm saying something much more inconvenient." "What does that mean?" "It means I'll see you Saturday." Then I hung up before I could do what I had always done and make it easier for him. The phone rang again before I had taken my hand off it. I let it ring. On the fourth ring, it stopped. 10 seconds later, a text appeared. "Mom, please answer." Then another. "I'm trying to fix this." That was Daniel's favorite word for the moment after he had made a choice. Fix. It suggested a loose screw, a flat tire, something that had gone wrong without anybody deciding it should. I turned my phone face down and opened the refrigerator again. The lemon was still in my hand. I had no idea what I'd intended to do with it. Dinner became toast over the sink. I burned one side, scraped it with a butter knife, and ate it anyway because waste seemed particularly offensive that night. Halfway through, I remembered the lentil soup in the freezer. By then, spite had committed me to the toast. The phone vibrated against the table 3 times. When I finally looked, Daniel had written a paragraph. "I wasn't trying to exclude you." "Dad mentioned Linda was nervous about the weekend, and I thought you'd rather skip one awkward dinner than deal with all that. I should have asked. I'm sorry. Please don't call Claire tonight. She's already stressed and I can handle it." I read the message twice. He wasn't trying to exclude me. He had merely arranged for me not to be included. The last sentence was the one that stayed under my skin. Don't call Claire. Not because Claire didn't know, because Daniel needed time to get between us and prepare the ground. I typed, "I have no intention of calling Claire." Then I erased it. I typed, "Stop telling me what I intend." I erased that too. In the end, I put the phone in the silverware drawer. It was an old habit from the years when I worked in an office and came home with my head still ringing. Stephen used to complain that he couldn't find me in an emergency. "You know where the forks are," I would tell him. The phone rang inside the drawer. I knew it wasn't Daniel because he would text first now, hoping to soften me into compliance. Stephen had always preferred the frontal assault. I opened the drawer and saw his name. For a moment, I considered letting him leave a message. Then I imagined listening to it later, alone, and answered. "What?" "Well," Stephen said, "hello to you too. You've caught me at a bad time." I gathered. He sounded exactly as he always did when someone else was upset. calm enough for both people, which allowed him to treat the other person's feelings as an unfortunate weather condition. Daniel's worked himself into a state, he said. Has he? He thinks you're not coming to the wedding. I told him I was. He may not have heard you clearly. I said, I'll see you Saturday. The acoustics in your house must have changed. Stephen sighed. Behind him, glass touched glass. He was having a drink. Stephen believed difficult conversations went better with ice. This is what I was worried about, he said. What were you worried about? The weekend becoming loaded. It was a wedding until you loaded it. That's unfair. I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner because you told Daniel your wife couldn't bear to eat chicken near me. What would you call fair? I never said she couldn't bear it. Then what did you say? Another clink of ice. I pictured him leaning against the wet bar in Linda's den, cufflink box open beside him, one hand in his pocket. Stephen had aged well in the way men do when other people keep track of their appointments. His hair had gone white at the temples, but remained thick enough for him to be proud of it. I said Linda was apprehensive, he told me. About me? About the dynamic. There is no dynamic. You left 25 years ago. The dynamic has finished college. Margaret. What did you expect me to do at dinner? I didn't expect you to do anything. Apparently my absence was essential to the evening. It was Daniel's decision. The speed with which he stepped away from it almost made me laugh. Did you know? I asked. Know what? That Daniel told them I declined. No, not until tonight. But you knew I wasn't coming. I assumed you had your reasons. Did that sound like me? I don't claim to know what sounds like you anymore. It was a polished sentence, and 20 years earlier it might have found its mark. That night it struck me as lazy. Stephen knew exactly what sounded like me. He had counted on it. Margaret won't mind. Margaret hates formal events. Margaret would rather stay home. He and Daniel had built the same imaginary woman from materials I had handed them. Did Linda ask not to have me there? I said. She didn't ask in those words. What words did she use? This isn't a deposition. No, Stephen. In a deposition, you'd have to answer. He lowered his voice. She said she felt strange about all of us sitting together as one big happy family. So do I. We're not one big happy family. Exactly. We're several adults eating dinner. That's a thing people survive every day. You know, Linda is sensitive. I found a safety pin for her at your sister's funeral while you were outside taking a work call. She survived being half naked in a church bathroom with me. She wasn't half naked. Then you do know what happened. He went silent. That was Stephen's tell. Daniel had the eyebrow. Stephen corrected details when he was losing. I sat at the kitchen table and picked toast crumbs from the legal pad with one finger. The list had become absurdly important. Dry cleaner, card, shoes, lemon. 4 small promises made to a day that had not happened yet. I did not ask Daniel to exclude you, Stephen said at last. Did you tell him not to? I didn't know that's what he'd done. Then tell him now. Tell him what? That Linda's feelings are not his mother's responsibility. Tell him you should never have put him in the middle. Tell him you'll take your wife to dinner and manage your own marriage without requiring me to vanish. His laugh held no humor. You always did know how to make a speech after the fact, and you always knew how to make the fact somebody else's fault. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. I could hear Linda in the background asking if he wanted more ice. Stephen covered the phone, but not quickly enough. No, he called to her. I'm talking to Margaret, Linda said. Oh, it was a small word. Surprised, not horrified. Does she know why? I asked. She knows there's been a misunderstanding. There has not been a misunderstanding. Fine. A problem. A decision. What do you want from me, Margaret? It was sincere, which made it sadder. Even after all those years, he still believed every pain came with an assignment somebody could complete. I want you not to improve the story. I don't know what that means. It means don't tell Linda I'm offended by her. Don't tell Daniel I'm angry about the divorce. Don't tell Claire this is wedding nerves. Just tell the truth in the same plain language you'd use if the truth made you look good. He exhaled through his nose. "I think you should come Friday," he said. "I'll make it clear there's no issue." "There is an issue. I'm trying to remove it. You can't remove an issue by inviting the person who was removed. That doesn't even make sense. It does from this side." I ended the call before he could make me explain it for his comfort. The house was quiet again, but not peacefully. The heating vent clicked. A car slowed outside, washed the ceiling with headlights, then moved on. I carried my plate to the sink and ran water over the toast crumbs until they disappeared. I slept badly. At 2 in the morning, I decided I had been too harsh. At 3, I remembered the phrase "another chair" and became angry all over again. At 4, I dreamed I arrived at the wedding in slippers, and nobody told me until the photographs were finished. At 7:30, I was dressed and drinking coffee when Claire called. I watched her name glow on the screen. For one cowardly second, I wished I had left the phone in the silverware drawer. "Hi, Claire, hi." Her voice sounded careful, but not tearful. I was grateful for that. Tears would have made me responsible for the weather. "Did I wake you?" she asked. "I've been awake since the Roosevelt administration." She gave a small laugh, then stopped as if humor might be disrespectful. "Daniel told me there was a mix-up about Friday. What did he say the mix-up was? He said he thought you didn't want to come and you thought you were coming. That's not a mix-up. That's 2 different stories, and he wrote both of them." Claire breathed in slowly. I heard a coffee shop behind her, milk steaming, cups hitting a counter. Someone calling a name that wasn't hers. She had probably left the apartment so Daniel couldn't hear. "He told me last month that you weren't comfortable going," she said. "Why?" He said, "Formal wedding things make you feel like an accessory." Despite myself, I almost smiled. It was a sophisticated lie, tailored from pieces of truth. I'd once told Daniel that matching corsages made mothers look like accessories included with the tuxedo rental. He had remembered the joke and turned it into a preference. "Did you believe him?" I asked. I didn't understand it, but yes, he's your son. That landed cleanly. "You had no reason not to," I said. "I should have asked you." "Yes." She went quiet, perhaps expecting me to release her. I could have said, "No, honey, this isn't your fault." The words were right there. They had been waiting in my mouth for most of my life. Instead, I waited. "I'm sorry," Claire said. "Thank you. My mother can add you. She wants to add you." I talked to her this morning. I'm sure she does. We can redo the table. It isn't a big deal. I looked toward the pantry door. The blue dress was still hanging there, one sleeve turned inward. It became a big deal when everybody started insisting it wasn't one. That came out wrong. "No, it didn't. You're trying to solve a seating problem." I understand. But I don't have a seating problem. What do you have? A son who volunteered my absence because he thought I was the safest person to disappoint. The noise behind Claire faded as a door opened and closed. She had stepped outside. "He says your history with Stephen is more complicated than I know. Our history isn't eating dinner. We've done that." I figured. "Did you?" "Margaret, I've watched you hand Linda your lipstick because she forgot hers. I never thought you were the one who couldn't handle a room. That surprised me enough that I said nothing." Claire continued, "Please come Friday." Not because Daniel asked me to call, he didn't. He specifically asked me to let him handle it, which is partly why I'm calling. There was steel in her voice now, not much, but enough to hear. "I won't be there," I said. "Are you trying to make him feel guilty?" "No, I'm refusing to arrive as his correction." She took that in without arguing. "Will you still come Saturday?" "Yes." "And the sewing kit?" I looked at it on the counter, packed in the small flowered tin my mother had used for buttons. "I'll bring it." Claire let out a breath. "Okay." "Okay." Before we hung up, she said, "For what it's worth, I didn't decline you." I know. I did know. But after the call ended, I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, wondering how many other things I knew only because Daniel had told me so. The question followed me to the dry cleaner. Mrs. Patel held my blue dress against the counter and asked whether I wanted the hanger covered in plastic for the car. I almost said, "Whatever you think." Then I caught myself. "No plastic," I said. "It wrinkles the sleeves." Mrs. Patel nodded as if I had made a serious and respectable decision. Maybe I had. That morning, choosing for myself had begun to feel like physical therapy after an injury. Simple motions performed with humiliating concentration. I stopped at the card shop next. Every wedding card seemed to have been written by someone who had never attended a wedding. 2 hearts, 1 path. A lifetime of perfect understanding. Love means never facing a seating chart. I chose a plain cream card with a thin gold border. Inside it said, "May you always be honest with each other and kind when honesty is hard." I stood in the aisle holding it for so long that a clerk asked if I needed help. I'm deciding whether this is a blessing or a threat. She read the card and said, "Could go either way." I bought it. Daniel was sitting on my front steps when I came home. He stood as I pulled into the driveway, brushing invisible dirt from his pants. He'd brought a white bakery bag, which sat beside him like evidence. Daniel was 41 years old, 6 feet tall, and could still arrange his face into the same solemn expression he'd used at 12, when he needed me to believe a broken lamp was more complicated than it appeared. I stayed in the car long enough to gather my purse and the dress. He came down the walk and opened my door. "I can carry that. I have it." His hand remained out for a second, then dropped. "You changed your hair," I said. He touched the side of his head. "Just cleaned it up. It's short. Claire likes it." I didn't say it was bad. I didn't say you did. We'd managed to argue about 3/4 of an inch of hair before reaching the front door. He followed me inside without being invited, though I didn't stop him. The house had been his home from age 8 until he left for college. Even after all those years, he glanced automatically toward the bowl on the hall table where I used to keep spare keys and quarters for the bus. I carried the dress into my bedroom and hung it on the closet door, away from the kitchen. When I returned, Daniel had placed the bakery bag on the table and was filling the kettle. "I brought almond croissants," he said. "You don't like almond. They're for you." That's usually how apologies work. He turned toward me. "Can we not start like this? We started yesterday." The kettle clicked against the burner as he set it down too hard. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and his new haircut made them more obvious. Some mean little piece of me was glad he had not slept well. The larger part wanted to touch his cheek and ask whether he was eating. I sat down before that part could take charge. Daniel took the chair across from me. Between us, the bakery bag gave off the warm, sweet smell of butter and sugar. "Claire called you," he said. "Yes. You told her I lied. I told her what happened. She asked if you declined. What was I supposed to say? You could have tried the truth. She already had the phone in her hand." He rubbed both palms over his face. "She thinks I'm some kind of manipulator now." "Did she use that word?" "No." "Then you're speaking for her again." He dropped his hands and stared at me. I had not planned the sentence. That seemed to make it worse. "I came to apologize," he said. "You brought pastries. I also came to apologize." "All right." He waited. I waited. "Mom, I'm sorry." "For what?" "You know, for what?" "I want to know if you do." His chair scraped back 1/2 inch, then forward. "I'm sorry I made the wrong call about the dinner." "You didn't make the wrong call. You told a lie." "I was going to explain." "When?" "I don't know. After the wedding." I nodded. "So I would have gone through the entire weekend believing I was simply overlooked. You would have been at the wedding. You're at all the important parts." The sentence left his mouth before he heard it. I watched him hear it. He looked down at the table. That came out wrong. It came out complete. I mean, the rehearsal isn't the wedding. No, it's the dinner where the 2 families are introduced before the wedding. I can see why a mother would be unnecessary. You know, Ellen invited cousins Claire hasn't seen in 5 years. The room is packed. That's not helping you. I'm not saying it's right. What are you saying? I'm saying there were a lot of people to manage, and you chose the one person least likely to complain. His eyes moved toward the window. I had been right. that did not feel as good as people pretend it does. The kettle began to whistle. Daniel stood so quickly that his knee struck the table. He turned off the burner and made tea without asking whether I wanted any. He remembered how I took it. Milk first, no sugar, and brought my cup over with the handle facing my right hand. That was the trouble with being hurt by someone who loved you. The love did not vanish to make the hurt easier to organize. It stood there making tea. Daniel sat again. "I thought Dad might not come," he said. The room seemed to settle around that confession. Did he say that? Not directly. Of course not. He said Linda had been dreading the dinner. He said the whole setup felt like we were asking her to watch the three of us pretend we were still a family. We are still a family, a divorced one. You know what he meant? Yes. He meant he wanted you to solve his wife's discomfort for him. Daniel tore a corner from the bakery bag. He's made an effort this year. I knew what that meant, too. Stephen had attended Daniel's birthday dinner, helped him price a replacement furnace, and taken him golfing twice. 3 ordinary acts had been promoted to a transformation because they came from a man who had trained everyone to expect less. "I'm glad," I said. "You don't sound glad. I am glad your father is showing up. I'm not glad you've decided I need to leave whenever he does. I didn't decide that. You decided it Friday. Once. Once is how things begin." He pushed the torn piece of paper back and forth with one finger. When he left, Daniel said, "You told me I didn't have to pick sides. You didn't. You made it pretty clear which side was safe." I set down my cup. There it was, the surprise I hadn't prepared for. Not an excuse exactly. Something older. What do you mean? You never missed anything. You never canceled. You never forgot to call. Dad did all of those things, so every time I wanted him around, it felt like I had to work at it. That wasn't my doing. I know. Do you? Yes. His voice sharpened. I know he was the one who left. I know you made excuses for him when you shouldn't have. I know all of that. But he's finally trying, and I didn't want one stupid dinner to make him pull away again. I wanted to tell him a father who could be driven away by a chicken dinner had not arrived in any meaningful sense. I wanted to tell him Stephen's love had always come with a weather advisory, and none of us had ever been responsible for keeping the sky clear. Instead, I asked, "Why did mine become the love you could risk?" Daniel looked at me. The torn paper stopped moving beneath his finger. "I didn't think of it like that." "I know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." He stood and walked to the sink. His shoulders had gone rigid under his shirt. For one strange second, I saw him at 17, angry because Stephen had forgotten the date of his driving test, refusing to admit he had waited all afternoon for a call. I had ordered pizza and pretended not to notice. Maybe that was where I had taught him. Not the lie itself, but the arrangement. His father could disappoint him, and I would make the evening pleasant. Daniel turned back. "Come Friday." "No. Dad understands now. How generous." He talked to Linda. "She doesn't have a problem with you being there. I never believed she did. Then what's the point of staying home? The point is that I wasn't invited. You are now. I'm being repaired into the evening." He laughed once, helplessly. "What does that even mean? It means you don't get to erase me, get caught, and then expect me to walk in smiling so nobody notices the mark. Everyone already knows." Everyone? Claire, Ellen, Dad, Linda, Paul? Probably. People I haven't met know I was falsely declined from their dinner, and you think that makes it more inviting? He leaned both hands on the back of his chair. "If you don't come now, it'll look pointed. It was invisible when you arranged it. That's not fair." "No, Daniel, it isn't." He walked into the living room, then back, as if my house had become too small for the amount of frustration he needed to spend. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I want you to stop asking that as if I'm hiding the correct combination. I'm trying here. You're trying to make Friday look normal. It's my wedding weekend. Is that terrible?" "No. But normal was available before you lied." He pressed his lips together. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. "Claire's upset with me. I'm sorry. You don't sound sorry. I can be sorry without taking it away. He looked at me for a long time. Then he reached for his keys. At the door, he stopped. You'll be at the hotel at 10 Saturday? Yes. And you'll bring the sewing kit? Yes. He nodded. Okay. Daniel. He turned. I love you. His face changed, and for a moment I thought he might come back into the room. I love you too, he said. Then he left the almond croissants unopened on my table. Friday evening, I made myself pasta with garlic and too much cheese. At 6:30, the time I guessed people were taking their seats, I poured a glass of wine. At 7, I turned on a detective show and realized 20 minutes later that I had not heard a word of it. My phone stayed silent until 8:43. The message came from Claire. You were missed tonight. A second message appeared before I could answer. And for the record, it wasn't awkward until everyone started explaining why you weren't here. I stared at Claire's message until the detective on television announced that the gardener had been dead for 6 hours. I typed, I'm sorry. That looked like an admission that I had caused the discomfort, so I erased it. I tried, you should be enjoying tonight. That sounded like an elderly relative scolding her for using her phone. Finally, I wrote, I'm sorry the explanations became part of your dinner. Get some sleep. Tomorrow matters. She answered with a heart, then 3 dots appeared and disappeared twice. No other message came. At 9:12, my doorbell rang. I assumed it was Daniel, arriving with a fresh strategy, so I left my wine on the kitchen counter and took my time. When I opened the door, Linda stood under the porch light in a navy wrap dress and silver shoes, holding her coat over one arm. Her lipstick was perfect. Her expression was not. I did not ask Daniel to exclude you, she said. Good evening, Linda. May I come in? I moved aside. She walked into the hall and looked toward the living room as though she had never been inside my house, though she had. Once, after Daniel's college graduation, the 3 of us had come back for coffee because Stephen insisted every restaurant would be crowded. Linda had sat on my couch and complimented a lamp Stephen hated when we were married. You changed the lamp, she said. No. Stephen never noticed it had a different shade on each side. She glanced at me, and for half a second we were both tempted to laugh. Neither of us did. Would you like wine? Yes. That answer came quickly enough to be trusted. I brought another glass into the living room. Linda sat on the edge of the couch with her knees together, still holding her coat. I sat in the chair across from her. The detective show continued with the sound muted, a woman in a raincoat questioning a visibly guilty dentist. Linda took one sip. Stephen said, you were upset with me. Stephen says a lot of things while holding ice. He told me you believed I didn't want you at the rehearsal. I believe he told Daniel you were apprehensive. Her mouth tightened. I said it might be a little strange. That sounds like apprehension. I also said it would be fine. That part didn't travel. She set her wine on the coffee table, saw she had placed it directly on the wood, and moved it onto a magazine. I don't want you thinking I sat there tonight pleased with myself because you weren't invited. I didn't think that. You must have. I was busy thinking about my son. That stopped her. Linda picked up her glass again. Right. There were no good roles available to us. If I comforted her, I became the woman who made everything easy. If I attacked her, I became the bitter ex-wife Daniel had been managing. The truth was less satisfying. Linda had expressed discomfort to her husband. Her husband had delivered it to our son in a form that required action. Our son had acted on me. What happened tonight? I asked. She leaned back slightly, grateful for a question with facts in it. We were late. How late? 27 minutes. Stephen said 20. He wasn't wearing the watch. Why were you late? He changed his shirt. Of course he did. He put on the blue one, decided the collar looked tired. Tried the white one, then went back to the blue. After that, he couldn't find the cufflinks. Daniel found the cufflinks Tuesday. The cufflinks were in the green box. He couldn't find the green box. I closed my eyes. I told him where it was. Apparently he moved it so he wouldn't lose it. That's a strategy that has never once succeeded. This time, Linda laughed. It slipped out of her, sharp and unwilling, and she covered her mouth with 2 fingers. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. It's the first pleasant thing to come out of those cufflinks." She settled a little farther into the couch. "By the time we arrived, everyone was seated," she said. Claire's mother had left 2 places near Daniel's aunt. "Barbara?" "Yes. Barbara asked where you were before I'd even taken off my coat. Barbara asks where everyone is. She counts people like silverware. Ellen said you couldn't make it. Claire said you'd been told you weren't invited. Daniel said that wasn't exactly what happened. I could see the table without wanting to. White plates, small candles, people lifting their water glasses while pretending not to listen. And Stephen, I asked. He said there had been some confusion because of complicated family feelings. Whose? That was my question. I looked at her. You asked him at the table? I had been used as the complicated family feeling. I wanted details. That was surprising. Linda disliked scenes so much that she once waited until we were in a parking lot to tell Stephen he had introduced her by my name. What did Daniel say? He said he thought you preferred not to attend. Claire asked why he thought that when she had heard him tell her, you had already declined. Ellen said she wished someone had simply given her your phone number. That sounds like Ellen. She was holding a bread plate when she said it. I thought she might throw it. Ellen doesn't throw. She reorganizes. Linda looked toward the muted television. The guilty dentist had begun to cry. Claire's aunt mentioned talking to you about hotels, she continued. She said you'd sounded excited to meet everybody. Marcy. She called my number by mistake when she was trying to reach Margaret Lane, one of Claire's cousins. I don't think the details improve the situation. They rarely do after Stephen starts explaining. The corner of Linda's mouth moved. What did he say to you before the dinner? I asked. He said you had decided not to come because the evening felt too crowded. Did that sound like me? No, she said, but I didn't know enough to question it. Claire had said almost the same thing. He's your son. One lie, properly placed, could recruit a room full of reasonable people. Linda looked down at her shoes. I should have questioned it. Yes. Her head came up. I had surprised her by agreeing. I had surprised myself, too. I said it would feel strange, she repeated, more defensively now. I didn't say I couldn't sit near you. Why would it feel strange? She considered pretending not to understand. I watched her decide against it, because there are moments with the 3 of you when I feel like I've entered a conversation that started before I existed. That happens to me, too. You were married to him, and now I enter rooms where you and Stephen have routines I don't know. He reaches for your coat. He remembers how you take your coffee. I become the person who knew him in an earlier draft. Linda stared at me. Her forehead creased. I assume that didn't bother you. People assume a lot about me. She looked away first. Outside, a car door slammed. Both of us turned toward the window, expecting one of the men who had made us so alert to arrivals. No one came up the walk. Stephen left early, Linda said. What? His college friend Marcus is in town. They met at the hotel bar. I laughed then. I couldn't help it. Linda did not. I know how it sounds. I was removed from an entire evening so Stephen could stay for the appetizers. He stayed through the entree. That changes everything. He said he'd promised Marcus. Stephen's promises are fascinating objects. They become heavier or lighter depending on who's holding them. Linda drank the rest of her wine. I stayed, she said. I talked to Barbara for an hour about a cruise she hated and plans to take again. That's Barbara. Then Claire asked me if I had told Stephen I couldn't handle being around you. What did you say? I said no. Good. She asked me to tell Daniel, and did you? Linda gave me a dry look. I told him his father had exaggerated. He said that didn't change the fact that he was trying to protect everyone. The word reached across the room and sat between us. Everyone, I said. I noticed that too. For the first time, we looked at each other without Stephen or Daniel standing invisibly between us. I'm not asking you to forgive him tonight, Linda said. I just wanted you to know I wasn't part of that decision. You were part of what started it. Her expression cooled. But you didn't make the decision, I added. Daniel did. She nodded once. It was not friendship. It was not absolution. It was the narrow relief of placing responsibility on the correct shelves. When Linda stood to leave, she smoothed the front of her dress and lifted her coat from the couch. You're coming tomorrow? She asked. Yes. Good. She reached the door, then turned. I brought my own lipstick. I have others. I know. But if my dress comes apart, I'm finding you. Bring a safety pin. She touched my forearm. Of course she did. After she left, I washed both wine glasses and packed the flowered sewing tin into my larger handbag. I signed the cream card without adding anything clever. Dear Claire and Daniel, may you give each other the courage to tell the truth. Love, Mom. I stared at Courage, wondering if it sounded accusing. Then I sealed the envelope before I could turn it into something safer. My alarm went off at 7. By 9:50, I was walking through the revolving doors of the Ashford Hotel with my blue dress zipped, my shoes already hurting, and the sewing tin knocking against my wallet. Upstairs, Claire's suite looked as if a cosmetics store had collided with a florist. 4 adult bridesmaids moved through steam, curling irons, garment bags, and half-eaten fruit. Ellen stood near the window in a pale rose suit, holding 2 phones and speaking into neither. When she saw me, her whole face rearranged itself. Margaret. Ellen. She crossed the room and hugged me with one arm, the phones trapped between us. I'm so sorry. Today is not the day for that conversation. Thank God, she whispered. I haven't had coffee. Claire sat at the vanity in a white robe while someone pinned her hair. Our eyes met in the mirror. You came, she said. I said I would. Her smile was small but real. A woman with a headset approached holding a clipboard. Margaret? I'm Vanessa, the coordinator. I just want to confirm procession and seating. Daniel indicated you preferred no special attention, so we have you on the aisle in the 3rd row. I looked at her clipboard, then at the front of the room where Claire had gone perfectly still. Daniel indicated that? Vanessa nodded. Once again, my son had found a polite way to put me somewhere else. Claire stood so quickly that the woman pinning her hair stepped back with both hands raised. No, Claire said. Vanessa glanced from her clipboard to Claire. No, she's not sitting in the 3rd row. I put one hand up. I can answer. Claire closed her mouth, but the pulse at the base of her throat kept moving. I turned to Vanessa. I don't prefer the 3rd row. I prefer the seat where the mother of the groom was originally supposed to sit. Vanessa's professional expression did not change. Wedding coordinators must take classes in keeping their eyebrows under control. That would be front row, inside aisle, she said. We can adjust. Was it changed recently? She checked the page. The note came with Daniel's family confirmations 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks, before the rehearsal lie, before Stephen's missing cufflinks and Linda's alleged apprehension. Daniel had been making me smaller in advance. What exactly does the note say? Claire asked. Vanessa hesitated. It's fine, I said. Read it. She ran one finger down the page. Mother prefers no formal recognition or prominent seating. Treat as regular guest. One of the bridesmaids stopped applying mascara. Ellen lowered both phones. Claire said something under her breath that her mother pretended not to hear. I don't want a scene, I told Vanessa. I do want the correct seat. Absolutely. She wrote something, then crossed it out, then wrote again. Front row, inside aisle, thank you. She escaped toward the bedroom where 2 bouquets were being dismantled and rebuilt. Claire turned in the vanity chair. He said you didn't want to be escorted. He didn't ask. He told me you hated ceremonial things. I hate ceremonial cake knives. They never cut anything. A bridesmaid laughed unexpectedly, then looked guilty. Claire did not. Why would he do that 3 weeks ago? Because he thought he was preventing a problem. What problem? Today is not the day for that conversation. You said the same thing to my mother. Your mother was grateful. Ellen raised one phone. Deeply. Claire looked at the women around her, all pretending to resume whatever they had been doing. She pressed her lips together. Everybody out for 5 minutes, she said. The woman holding the curling iron froze. Your hair can survive 5 minutes. Ellen opened her mouth. You too, Mom. Ellen looked offended until Claire pointed at the door. Then she gathered the bridesmaids with the authority of someone organizing evacuation from a very attractive fire. I remained by the couch. When the door closed, Claire looked at me through the mirror. I don't know what's true anymore. That seems dramatic. I'm getting married in 2 hours. I'm entitled to 15 dramatic minutes. 10. You still need the other side of your hair. She almost smiled. Her wedding dress hung from a hook near the window, the long skirt arranged over a white sheet. In the morning light, the fabric was softer than it had looked at the fittings. The bodice was simple, with narrow beaded straps and a row of covered buttons down the back. Claire had chosen it because she said she wanted to look like herself with better tailoring. Daniel loves you, I said. I know. He loves me too. I know that. Then don't turn one ugly decision into a mystery that explains his entire soul. Claire twisted in the chair. You're defending him? I'm being accurate. He told Vanessa to treat you like a regular guest. He probably thought I'd be relieved. Would you have been? If he'd asked, I might have skipped the escort. I wouldn't have chosen the 3rd row. That makes it worse. It makes it Daniel. She studied me. What does that mean? It means he edits situations before they happen. He believes if he can arrange everyone correctly, nobody will be upset with him. That isn't possible. You may want to embroider that on a pillow. Her eyes moved to the wedding dress. Last month, I told him I didn't want divorced parent tension in the front row, she said. I meant no glaring, no weird speeches, no one grabbing the photographer to redo pictures without somebody. He said he'd handle it, and he did. I didn't tell him to move you. I know. You keep saying that, because you keep trying to borrow part of the blame. Claire looked down at her hands. Her nails were painted a pale color with no chips. Everything visible about her was ready. I should go talk to him, she said. In your robe, I have a coat, you have half a hairstyle. I can call him. You can. But decide what you want from the call. I want him to explain. He'll explain until the explanation becomes the subject. Ask him what he did, then listen. She gave me a long look. You've had practice. 33 years of motherhood. 11 years of marriage to his father. I could teach a seminar. That got a real laugh. It lasted only a second, but the room felt better after it. A knock sounded, followed by Ellen saying, I am respecting the 5 minutes, but the photographer is not. 1 more minute, Claire called. She rose and crossed to the dress. Will you help me put it on? There were 6 other women outside whose official purpose included that task. Yes, I said. We lifted the dress off the hook together. Claire stepped into it, holding my shoulder for balance. I drew the bodice up and began fastening the covered buttons. Halfway to the top, one of the elastic loops pulled loose. Claire felt my hands stop. What? Nothing. That's not a nothing pause. 1 loop is loose. Her face went pale. Loose how? Loose in a way that proves you were right to ask for the sewing kit. I took the flowered tin from my handbag. The hinge squeaked when I opened it. Inside were black, white, cream, and navy thread, needles wrapped in a scrap of felt, safety pins, tiny scissors, a thimble, and 3 buttons that matched nothing currently manufactured. Claire watched me thread a needle. My grandmother had a tin like that, she said. Everyone's grandmother had this tin. They issued them. I secured the loop with 4 small stitches, while Claire stood very still. My fingers knew the work better than my mind did. Through the door came muffled conversation, a hairdryer, Ellen directing someone to find Paul. There, I said. Claire reached behind her but stopped before touching it. Will it hold? It'll outlive us. That's romantic. It belongs in the card. I buttoned the dress the rest of the way and stepped back. For a moment, all the noise outside seemed to drop. Claire looked at herself in the mirror, her shoulders lowered. She was not transformed into someone else. She looked exactly as she had hoped, herself, with better tailoring. "Oh," she said. I saw tears gather and pointed the needle at her. "Don't. They'll blame me for your makeup." She laughed and dabbed beneath one eye. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome." She turned and hugged me carefully, keeping her face away from my shoulder. When I opened the door, Ellen entered first, followed by the photographer and everyone else. The room filled again. Questions, hairspray, bouquets, a missing earring found inside a shoe. Claire was carried into the machinery of the day. I moved near the window where I could be useful without being in the way. My phone buzzed in my handbag. Daniel. I stepped into the hallway to answer. "Hi," he said. His voice was low. "Are you with Claire?" I was. "How is she?" "Dressed. Mom. She looks beautiful." He let out a breath. "Okay." There were male voices behind him, laughter, and a television turned too loud. Someone asked where his tie was. A hotel door shut. "Did she say anything about me?" Daniel asked. "You're getting married. She's mentioned you. About the seating." "Yes." He groaned softly. "Vanessa brought that up?" "Vanessa was confirming where I preferred to sit." "I set that weeks ago. It had nothing to do with the rehearsal." "I know. I thought you didn't want to be walked in with everyone staring at you. You thought, can we deal with this later? You called me." "I called because Claire sent me a message asking what else I'd decided for people." "That's a reasonable question. She's supposed to be happy right now. She can be happy and angry. Women have range. Could you tell her there are no hard feelings? Please. Tell her you and I talked and everything's fine." I looked down the hallway. A hotel employee pushed a cart stacked with white towels past me, humming as he went. "Everything isn't fine. I know, but it will be." That's not the same sentence. I'm not asking you to lie. You're asking me to deliver a feeling I don't have so your bride will stop asking questions. Not stop asking, just not today. Today is when your decisions arrived. He went silent. Inside the suite, everyone cheered. I heard the photographer say, "That's it. Hold that." Daniel's voice softened. "I don't want this to ruin the wedding. It won't." "How do you know?" "Because Claire loves you, and I love you, and neither of us is trying to ruin anything." "Then why can't you tell her that?" "Because you need to. We're not seeing each other before the ceremony. You're holding a phone." "That's not what I mean." "I know." "You want me to make her comfortable without making you uncomfortable. That's not fair." "No, it's familiar." He exhaled, and for a second neither of us spoke. "Are you still walking in?" he asked. "Yes." "Front row?" "Yes." "Okay." He sounded relieved. That irritated me more than resistance would have. He wanted me visible now because my presence could announce forgiveness before he had earned it. "Daniel," I said, "when you see me, don't confuse showing up with saying what you did was all right." "I won't." I could not tell whether he meant it. The ceremony was set in the hotel's glass conservatory, where rows of white chairs faced an arch covered in greenery. Sunlight lay across the aisle in bright rectangles. Guests turned as I entered with one of Daniel's friends, a pleasant accountant named Miles who asked whether I wanted to walk slowly. "I'm 68. Not a parade float?" I whispered. He coughed to hide a laugh. My seat waited in the front row. Linda sat beside it, wearing deep plum lipstick. Stephen stood when I approached and looked as though he wanted credit for not appearing alarmed. "You look lovely," Linda said. "So do you." Stephen kissed my cheek. "I'm glad you're here." I sat before he could add anything. Music began. Daniel entered with his best man and took his place near the arch. His gaze moved across the room, found Stephen, then Linda, then me. His shoulders loosened. I hated that I noticed. Then Claire appeared at the far end of the aisle on Paul's arm, and every smaller tension in the room shifted around her. Daniel's face opened in a way I had not seen since he was young. No management, no calculation, just wonder. When Claire reached him, she took his hands. He whispered something that made her smile despite herself. They meant their vows. That was the difficult grace of it. Daniel promised honesty in a steady voice, and Claire looked directly at him as if the word belonged not only to the ceremony, but to the conversation waiting after it. I sat in the seat I had chosen and watched my son marry the woman he loved. Beside me, Stephen began to cry before I did. Linda handed him a tissue without looking away from the couple. For once, nobody asked me to make anything easier. The photographer came close. He arranged us beneath the arch after the guests moved toward cocktails. Claire and Daniel stood in the center, still holding hands as if someone might separate them between pictures. Paul and Ellen took Claire's side. Stephen stepped toward Daniel's, then stopped when he saw Linda and me approaching from different directions. It was the sort of moment Daniel had apparently spent weeks trying to prevent. The photographer pointed. Mom beside the groom, Dad next to Mom, and spouses on the outside. Stephen looked at me. Linda looked at Stephen. I said, "He means Daniel's mom." "I know what he means," Stephen said. "You have the face you make when a restaurant adds gratuity." Linda slipped past him and took the outside place. "Stephen, stand next to Margaret. We're adults." I wasn't objecting. You were preparing a panel discussion. He moved beside me. His arm hovered behind my back without touching. "Closer," the photographer said. "We were married 11 years, I told him. "You can risk a shoulder." Stephen put his hand lightly against my upper back. The photographer lowered his camera. "Everybody happy?" "No," Claire said, "but take it anyway." The picture captured us laughing. We took combinations until family began to feel like a math problem. Claire with her parents, Daniel with Stephen and me, Daniel with Stephen and Linda, Daniel with me alone. For that one, he put his arm around my shoulders. "You okay?" he whispered. "This is not the place. I was asking if your shoes hurt. They're instruments of torture. I told you to wear the silver ones." I turned my head. "When? Christmas?" "You said the blue ones pinched." The photographer told us to look at him. Daniel remembered my shoes. He remembered how I drank tea, which bakery sold the almond croissants I liked, and the song I sang when I cleaned the house on Sunday mornings. He could remember every detail except that I was a person who needed to be asked. The camera flashed. At the cocktail hour, I found my mother's table runner spread across a long table beneath bowls of white flowers. Place cards, framed photographs, and a wooden box for envelopes sat on top. The repaired vine ran along the front edge, almost hidden by greenery. Claire appeared beside me with a glass of sparkling water. "It looks beautiful," I said. "You're not supposed to compliment the decorations. Something will hear you and collapse." "How's the loop?" She touched the back of her dress. "Holding. I told you. Vanessa says we need to line up for the entrance in 5 minutes. That sounds dangerous." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Daniel told me what he did with the seating." "Good. He said he thought you'd be more comfortable." "I'm sure he did." I asked why he didn't ask you. "What did he say?" "That he didn't want to create a conversation where you felt obligated to say yes." I looked at her. Claire took a slow sip of water. "I know. He's talented. He could turn choosing a pizza topping into protecting somebody from cheese." She sounded annoyed, but affection remained under it. That mattered. She was not joining my side because there were no sides worth joining. She was looking at the man she had just married and seeing a habit she had not named before. "Don't spend your reception investigating him," I said. "Are you telling me to let it go?" "I'm telling you the band costs too much for you to stand beside a card box talking to me." She smiled. "My mother said the same thing with more panic." "Go enter." Claire squeezed my hand and left. Ellen took her place almost immediately. She had traded one phone for a champagne glass, but still held the other. "The conservatory was perfect," I said. "Was it?" "You were there. I was counting candles." "There were enough." She looked toward the reception room, where Vanessa was gathering the wedding party behind closed doors. "I owe you an apology," Ellen said. You owe me a conversation after you've slept." I believed what Daniel told us. "Why wouldn't you?" "Because I have your phone number. You didn't when he first told you. I got it from Claire, after there was a problem." Ellen shook her head. "You're making it very difficult to apologize properly. It's a gift. I had a place card made this morning." "For the rehearsal?" "Yes. I don't know why." The dinner was over. She gave a tired laugh and pressed her fingers beneath one eye. "I kept thinking if I had it, then at least there had been a place for you somewhere. That was kinder than I expected, and it nearly undid me." I touched her arm. "There was." "No, there wasn't. There was a chair. Daniel chose not to put me in it. That part belongs to him, not you." Ellen nodded. The doors to the reception room opened and music spilled into the hall. "Go," I said. "Count something." "There are 14 tables. Count them again." She hurried toward Paul, visibly relieved. My assigned table was near the dance floor with Barbara, 2 of Daniel's cousins, and 3 of Claire's relatives I had never met. If Daniel had arranged it to minimize tension, he had failed. Barbara provided enough tension for 8 people. She leaned toward me before the salads arrived. "I heard about last night." "Of course you did. I told Stephen it was disgraceful." "When?" "During the fish. He left before dessert, so your timing was good." Barbara frowned toward her brother's table. "He always leaves when someone gets specific." Across the room, Stephen was adjusting Linda's chair. She caught me looking and lifted her wine glass. I lifted mine back. The evening was beautiful despite us all. That was almost offensive. The food arrived warm. The flowers stayed upright. Paul gave a toast that was funny without humiliating anyone, and Ellen managed 3 full minutes at the microphone without referring to a spreadsheet. Claire's closest friend told a story about meeting Daniel at a crowded airport where he had given up his seat at the gate so Claire could charge her phone. She said he had been rearranging the world around Claire from the first day. Everyone sighed. Claire glanced at me. I looked down at my wine. Stephen's toast was shorter than I expected. He spoke about second chances without specifying who had given them to whom. He said Daniel had become a better man than his father, then looked deeply moved by his own honesty. The room applauded. Barbara muttered, "Well, that clears the bar," and I choked on my water. When dinner plates disappeared, Daniel came to my table. "Mom, can I steal you?" Barbara said. "You already did," before I could answer. I gave her a look and stood. Daniel held out his hand. The band had begun the opening notes of an instrumental arrangement I recognized immediately. "Moon River," I said. "You used to sing it while you vacuumed. I also sang commercial jingles. You had options." He smiled, but his eyes were nervous. "You knew there was a mother-son dance?" I asked. "Of course. You told Vanessa I didn't want formal recognition. I thought you didn't want the escort and the announcement. This is different." "To you." He lowered his hand. "Do you want to skip it?" Around us, guests were turning their chairs toward the floor. The photographer had already moved into position. Daniel had given me a choice when declining would cost both of us in public. "No," I said, "we'll dance." He led me onto the floor. Daniel had never been a good dancer. At his cousin's wedding, he had attempted a spin and nearly put me into a waiter. That night, he kept it simple. One hand around mine and the other at my back. I could feel the tension in his palm. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. "You look beautiful," he said. "So does your wife. I'm lucky." "Yes." He swallowed. "I'm sorry." I watched the silver cuff link at his wrist catch the light. Stephen's initials, Stephen's box, Stephen's discomfort. Everything had made it to the wedding except the truth, which kept arriving late. "I believe you're sorry," I said. "I am." But an apology whispered while photographers circle us isn't repair. His hand tightened slightly. "I'm not doing this for them." "Then say it when nobody is watching." "I tried at your house." "You said you made the wrong call." "I did. You made several choices, Daniel. A call is what happens when the florist sends the wrong flowers." He glanced toward the tables, making sure no one could hear us. "I panicked," he said. "Dad said Linda might not come. I thought if I asked you, You'd say yes even if you were uncomfortable. So you said no for me. I knew you would be okay." There it was again. I looked at his face. My son, on his wedding day, trying to confess without letting the confession disturb the photographs. He was frightened, ashamed, defensive, and genuinely happy. All of it existed at once. "You knew I would still love you," I said. His eyes shone. "Yes. That is not the same as being okay." The music moved into the part where I used to hold the long note badly while pushing the vacuum cleaner down the hall. Daniel smiled at the memory and then looked ashamed for smiling. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "Stop trying to fix it before you've understood it. What do you want me to do? Not here. Mom, this dance is for us. Let it be a dance." He looked down, nodded, and moved his hand a little higher on my back. We finished the song without speaking. Near the end, I let my cheek rest against his shoulder. That was not forgiveness, it was not strategy either. It was love, which was inconveniently its own thing. When the music ended, guests applauded. Daniel kissed my cheek. I returned to my table while Claire joined him for their first dance. She reached for him before the song began, and he folded around her with visible relief. I wondered how many times I had mistaken someone's relief for proof that I had done the right thing. The cake was cut. The band grew louder. Stephen danced with Linda in the stiff, careful way he had once danced with me, counting silently whenever the rhythm changed. Ellen kicked off her shoes. Paul wore a napkin as a pocket square after spilling sauce on himself. At 10:30, I found Claire near the terrace doors. "I'm heading home." "So early?" My feet have filed a complaint. She hugged me. "Thank you for coming. I wanted to come." "I know." That answer meant more now. Daniel appeared with his tie loosened and a flush across his cheeks. He kissed me and asked me to stay for one more song. "No," I said. "Go be married." "Will you come to breakfast tomorrow?" The hotel was serving a casual breakfast for out-of-town guests. I had planned to go before any of this happened, but no one had directly asked. Not until now. "What time?" 9:30. "Then yes." He looked surprised by how easily the answer came. "You asked," I said. Understanding flickered across his face, followed by pain. "All right," he said. I left them standing together beneath the terrace lights. At home, I placed my shoes by the stairs and carried the flowered sewing tin back to its kitchen drawer. The blue dress went on the bedroom closet door. A faint scent of flowers and hotel candles clung to it. My phone buzzed while I removed my earrings. "Thank you for today," Daniel had written. "I love you." My thumbs hovered over the screen. For years, my answer would have been, "I love you too. Everything is fine." I wrote only the first sentence. "I love you too." At 9:20 the next morning, I stood outside the hotel restaurant, wondering whether love was reason enough to eat eggs under fluorescent lighting. My feet had forgiven me, but only because I wore loafers. Inside, 3 long tables had been pushed together beneath a sign that said, "Farewell Brunch" in gold script. The newlyweds were already there. Claire had twisted her hair into a loose knot and wore no makeup. Daniel's eyes were red, his shirt was wrinkled, and he looked happier than I had seen him in years. He spotted me and stood. "You came. You keep sounding surprised when I do what I said. I'm adjusting." He pulled out a chair beside Claire. On my other side sat Barbara, who had collected 4 miniature jars of hotel jam in front of her plate. "They're included," she told me. "I didn't ask. Your face did." Claire leaned over and kissed my cheek. "How are your feet?" "Divorced from the shoes." That was fast. We'd been unhappy for years. Breakfast moved with the soft disorder of people who had danced too late. Ellen wore sunglasses indoors. Paul kept asking servers where the coffee was while holding a full cup. One of the bridesmaids slept with her chin in her hand until someone brought bacon. Stephen arrived alone at 10. Barbara looked toward the doors. "Where's Linda?" She had a headache. She seemed fine last night. She woke up with one. Stephen took the empty chair across from us. His hair was damp, and he had buttoned his shirt one hole wrong at the bottom. That alone told me Linda had not helped him dress. "Morning," he said. Daniel passed him the coffee. "Where were you?" I texted, checking out. "I thought you were staying tonight." Plans changed. Stephen looked at me, then away. His face had the faintly bruised look of a man who had discovered that consequences could follow him upstairs. Barbara stirred her coffee. "Linda's headache have a name?" "Barbara." "What?" I'm concerned. "You have enough jam," Stephen said. Daniel looked between them. "Did you two have a fight?" "No," Stephen answered. "At the same time," Barbara said. "Obviously." I reached for toast and did not rescue anyone. The silence lasted 11 seconds. I knew because I counted them. In the past, I would have asked about the cake, complimented Ellen's flowers, or told a story at my own expense. I had always believed that redirecting awkwardness was kindness. Maybe it was sometimes, but kindness offered automatically could become housekeeping, and I was tired of cleaning rooms I had not disturbed. Claire broke the silence instead. "Who wants to hear how Daniel locked us out of the suite last night?" Daniel groaned. The table laughed. The morning restarted without me. That was the first small proof that the family could survive my stillness. After breakfast, Claire and Daniel had to leave for the airport. Their suitcases waited near the lobby desk, decorated with white ribbons someone had tied around the handles. Ellen stood over a luggage cart assigning leftover flowers to anyone who made eye contact. "Margaret," she called, "do you have room in your car? For flowers. For 6 arrangements and 2 boxes of welcome bags." No. I did have room. My back seat was empty. Ellen blinked, then laughed. "Fair enough." Paul wandered past carrying 3 glass vases. "I have room." "You're already taking the centerpieces," she told him. "I thought these were the centerpieces. Those are cocktail flowers. They look centered." While they debated, I found my mother's table runner folded inside a clear garment bag near the concierge desk. Someone had tucked the wooden card box on top of it. Daniel came over, carrying his jacket and 1 shoe. "Why do you have 1 shoe? Miles has the other." "Why?" "It's a long story." "No, it isn't." He smiled and picked up the card box. "Can you take this home?" "We'll get it after the trip." I looked at the box, then at him. "Did you ask Ellen?" "She's taking everything else." "Did you ask Stephen?" "He left." "Of course he did." "Mom, it's 1 box." There it was, the phrase that reduced every request to its object. 1 box, 1 dinner, 1 message, never the structure around it. "I'll take the runner," I said. "It belongs to me. Ask Miles to take your cards. Miles is taking us to the airport. Then ask Paul." Daniel's smile disappeared. "You're really doing this over a box?" "I'm answering a question. You could have just said yes, and you could have asked someone else after I said no." His eyes moved toward Claire, who was hugging her mother beside the elevators. "You're still angry?" "Yes." He looked surprised, though less than he would have the day before. "I thought after the dance, I told you not to confuse showing up with saying it was all right." "I know." "Do you?" He looked at the card box in his hands. "Apparently." Claire joined us before he could say more. She took in his expression, the box, and the runner over my arm. "What's happening?" "Nothing," Daniel said. "Then why do you have your nothing face?" "I asked Mom to take the cards." "And I said no?" I added. Claire nodded. "Paul can take them." Daniel looked at her. "He's loaded down with flowers. He has a car the size of a tugboat. It's fine." He carried the box toward Paul, shoulders tight. Claire watched him go. "I'm not asking," she said. "Good. I am going to say he apologized to me last night. I'm glad." He also said the 3rd row seat was a practical choice because Stephen and Linda needed space. How many seats did he think Linda occupied? Claire pressed her lips together to keep from laughing. "We're going to talk about it," she said. "Talk about your marriage, not his mother. Those subjects touched. They don't have to stay attached." Her expression softened. "Are you always this reasonable when you're furious?" "No. Once I threw a meatloaf. Seriously?" Stephen said my recipe tasted like his mother's. What was wrong with his mother's? Nothing. That was the problem. Claire laughed, then hugged me. Daniel returned without the box. He hugged me too, but there was caution in it now, as if my edges had become visible. "Have a good trip," I said. "We will. Call when you land. I will." He did call, and when I asked how the flight had been, he told me Claire slept on his shoulder and drooled on his shirt. Claire shouted from the background that marriage protected her from defamation. They sounded happy. I was happy for them. Then I hung up and ate soup alone at my table. The runner soaked in the bathtub that evening. A pale crescent of champagne had dried near one corner, and one of the embroidered vines had snagged. I worked a little soap into the stain with my fingertips and watched the water cloud. My house had often been quiet before. That Sunday, it felt like a silence I had selected, which should have made it empowering. Instead, I kept hearing Daniel ask whether I was really doing this over a box. I wondered the same thing. The following Tuesday, June, Calder called. June had worked 2 desks away from me at the insurance office for 17 years and retired 6 months after I did. She had a deep smoker's voice despite never having smoked and treated every invitation as if she were serving a subpoena. "A group of us is going to the Arboretum Sunday," she said. "Fall exhibit. Lunch afterward. You're coming. I usually have Daniel over Sundays. Is he back from the honeymoon? Saturday. Then he'll have photographs to sort and laundry to lie about doing." I opened my mouth to decline. On my counter sat the grocery circular. Chicken was on sale. I had already circled it in blue ink without realizing why. "What time?" I asked. 11. "I'll come." June paused. "Did someone die?" "No." "Are you ill?" "I'm going to hang up. Wear walking shoes." Daniel called Thursday evening from the airport during a layover. He and Claire had spent 5 days near the coast, eating seafood and taking photographs of sunsets they would never look at again. His voice was bright until he said, "I told Aunt Barbara we'd stop by Sunday after dinner." "Whose dinner?" "Yours." "I'm going to the Arboretum with June." Silence. "This Sunday." "That is generally what Sunday means. But we'll be home." "I know." "I thought we always did dinner after trips. We often have. Did I do something else?" The question was so naked that I almost canceled on June. "No," I said. "I made plans. Because you didn't think we'd want to come? Because June invited me. And you said yes. That's how plans happen when people ask." He heard it. I wished I had not sharpened the sentence, but I did not take it back. "Okay," he said. "Tell me about the hotel." For a few minutes he did. The water pressure was terrible. Claire had bought a hat she refused to pack properly. A seagull had stolen half his sandwich. We laughed. Then he said, "Can you call Aunt Barbara and tell her we'll come another day?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you made the plan. She'll make it into a whole thing if I cancel." That sounds like something to discuss with her. You know how to talk to her. So do you. "No, I don't. You're 41. Start practicing." He gave an incredulous laugh. "You're not going to call her?" "No. What am I supposed to say?" "The truth. You just got back. You're tired and you made plans without checking. She'll say I'm inconsiderate. Then you'll survive hearing it. Why are you being like this?" "Like what? Every conversation is a lesson now." I looked down at the blue circle around chicken in the grocery circular. "I don't want to teach you anything," I said. "I want to stop doing things that cost me more than you notice. I noticed Sunday dinner. You noticed it when it wasn't there." He was quiet. An announcement sounded over the airport speaker. Claire said something near him, and Daniel covered the phone. "We're boarding," he said. "Call Barbara." "Fine. And call when you land." "I will." He sounded irritated. He also sounded like my son. On Sunday, I walked beneath red and gold trees with June and 3 women I had not seen since retirement. We ate lunch at a crowded cafe where the soup was too salty and nobody asked me to mediate anything. June told a scandalous story about her homeowners association. I laughed hard enough to spill water on my sleeve. At 4, Daniel texted, "Home. called Barbara. She survived. A minute later, another message appeared. Are you free next Sunday? I stood on the arboretum path while leaves scraped across the pavement around my shoes. Yes, I wrote. Would you and Claire like to come for dinner? His answer arrived at once. We would, not we'll be there. Not the familiar assumption dressed as affection, a question, an answer. It was a small change, almost too small to trust. I put the phone in my pocket and followed June toward the parking lot, already thinking about what I might cook. Then I stopped myself and smiled. Chicken, maybe. But only if it was still on sale. The chicken was not on sale. I bought it anyway, which felt less like generosity than refusing to let a grocery store determine the emotional tone of my Sunday. Daniel and Claire arrived at 6, carrying wine and a box of photographs from the wedding. Daniel knocked, though he still had a key. I noticed that before I noticed the wine. You didn't have to knock, I said. You've become unpredictable. I went to an arboretum, Daniel. I didn't join a motorcycle gang. Claire kissed my cheek and handed me the box. He called Barbara. I heard. She spoke for 23 minutes without pausing. Then he got the short version. Daniel followed us into the kitchen. She said canceling plans is a sign of moral collapse. She believes punctuality is the highest form of character. She also asked whether the honeymoon had improved my complexion. Has it? Claire studied his face. No. Dinner began well. That was not unusual. Most difficult families do not spend every meal throwing accusations. We discussed the trip, the wedding photographs, and the hotel's refusal to admit that their shower had 2 temperatures, glacial and unlawful. Claire had selected 20 photographs for the box. In one, she and Daniel were laughing beneath the arch. In another, Ellen was crying, while Paul tried to unfold a tissue with one hand. There was a picture of Stephen and Linda dancing, his mouth slightly open as he silently counted. Then I found the family photograph. Claire and Daniel stood in the middle. Paul and Ellen were on one side. Stephen, Linda, and I were on the other. Every one of us was laughing at Claire's instruction to take the picture whether we were happy or not. You can't tell anything was wrong, Daniel said. I looked at him. He reached for his wine. I meant, it's a good picture. It is. Claire watched him over the rim of her glass. I placed the photograph back in the box and carried the chicken to the table. The old rhythm returned easily. Daniel carved because he hated watching me do it the wrong way. Claire made a face at the amount of butter in the potatoes, then took seconds. I told them June had nearly been escorted out of the Arboretum gift shop for arguing about a coupon. For half an hour, I forgot to be careful. Then Daniel said, Dad wants to know what we're doing for Thanksgiving. Did he ask you? I said. Yes. He and Linda might go to Marcus's house, but if we're doing something here, they'll stay. I haven't planned anything. We usually eat here. Claire put down her fork. I thought we were going to my parents for lunch. My mother said dinner. She said afternoon. She said 3. That's dinner to your parents. That's a late lunch to my parents. Daniel looked at me. Claire doesn't care about the exact time. She just doesn't want Ellen upset. Claire turned toward him. I care about the exact time because I don't want to eat 2 full meals in 4 hours. You said whatever worked. I said whatever worked after you told me your mother had already planned dinner. They both looked at me. I have not planned dinner, I said. Daniel frowned. You always host. That is not a plan. That is a history. You asked us for dinner tonight, and you agreed to tonight. Claire pushed one potato through the gravy with her fork. When did your father ask? Yesterday. You told me he asked this morning. I may have said this morning. You did say this morning. Daniel's face tightened. Why does that matter? Because yesterday I told you we should call Margaret before answering anyone. I didn't answer him. You told him we'd probably be here. That's not an answer. It became an answer when you told me your mother already had plans. He set down the carving fork. I could feel the conversation turning toward me, asking me to become useful. I could confirm that Daniel had reasonably assumed. I could tell Claire that Thanksgiving did not have to be decided that night. I could offer to host, solving the entire matter with one sentence. Instead, I ate a bite of potato. Daniel waited. "Mom? What? Are you going to say anything? You and Claire are discussing what you told each other, but you know what we usually do, so do both of you." Claire looked at me, then at Daniel. "She's right." "Of course she is. That tone isn't necessary." "What tone?" "The one where everyone else is unreasonable because you were trying to help. I was trying to make sure nobody got left alone." Claire leaned back. "Did you ask anyone if they would be alone?" Daniel's eyes shifted toward me again. I took another bite of chicken. It had gone slightly dry. He stood and carried his plate to the sink, though we were not finished eating. "Great," he said. "Nobody wants me to handle anything. I won't." "That isn't what I said," Claire told him. "It's what both of you mean." I put down my fork. "No. We mean you should ask before handling people." He turned from the sink. "You've made your point. I didn't start this conversation. You didn't have to. It's in every room now." The words hurt because they were partly true. The rehearsal dinner had become a third guest at every encounter, sitting quietly until someone reached for the wrong subject. Claire folded her napkin. "We should go." "No," I said. They both looked at me. "You came for dinner. We are having dinner. Nobody has thrown the meatloaf." "What meatloaf?" Daniel asked. "Ancient history." Claire's mouth twitched. I stood, took Daniel's plate from beside the sink, and put it back in his place. "Sit down," I said. "We'll eat the food I overpaid for. Then you two can decide whether Thanksgiving requires a constitutional convention." Daniel remained where he was. "Please," I added. He sat. The conversation did not become pleasant, but it became real. Claire wanted Thanksgiving afternoon with her parents because her father's brother was traveling in from Oregon. Daniel wanted to see Stephen because he worried an invitation to Marcus's would become another excuse for his father to drift away. Neither wanted two dinners. Neither had said those things plainly because Daniel had begun arranging logistics before either of them admitted what mattered. I listened. I did not offer my dining room. Eventually, Claire said, "What if we have lunch with my parents Thursday and dinner with your mother Friday?" Daniel looked at me. "Would you want that?" The wording was careful. "Yes," I said, "I would." He nodded. "What about Dad?" "Ask him," I said. Daniel almost smiled. "I walked into that." "You did." We finished the chicken. While Claire dried dishes, Daniel followed me into the living room. The wedding photographs remained spread across the coffee table. "I don't want every mistake I make to become evidence," he said. "Evidence of what?" "That I'm like Dad." I sat on the couch. "I haven't said you are. You think it." "No. You stay." "That's not a small difference." He looked toward the kitchen, where Claire was opening and closing cabinets, trying to find where I kept the storage containers. "Then why does it feel like I'm failing some test? Because people have stopped giving you the answers you prefer." He sat in the chair across from me. "I thought handling things was helpful," he said. "Sometimes it is." "How am I supposed to know when?" "Ask." He made a tired sound. "And you make that seem simple." "It's simple, not easy." Claire called. "Why do you have 12 lids and only 5 containers?" "Stephen packed after the divorce," I called back. Daniel laughed before he could stop himself. When they left, he hugged me longer than usual. The following weeks were a series of small, awkward experiments. Daniel called Stephen and asked directly about Thanksgiving. Stephen complained that plans had become needlessly complicated, then accepted Friday dinner. Linda called me herself to ask what she could bring. "Wine," I said. "Red or white? What do you want to drink?" She paused. "White." Then white. Barbara called to ask why Daniel seemed sensitive lately. I told her to ask Daniel. She said she was asking me because I knew how to phrase things. "I'm retiring from phrasing," I said. "You already retired. This is a second retirement." She called him. I knew because he texted, "Aunt Barbara wants to know if I'm sensitive." I responded, "Are you?" He did not answer for 2 hours. Then, apparently, not everything improved. One Sunday, Daniel canceled dinner by text. "Claire's wiped out. Rain check?" I wrote, "Of course. Tell her I hope she rests." The next afternoon, Claire called while driving home from work. "Did Daniel tell you I was sick?" "He said you were wiped out." "I was not wiped out. He wanted to watch a football game with Miles and didn't want to say so." There was more disbelief than anger in her voice. "Did he go?" "No. I found out before dinner and made him call Miles." "I'm sorry. I wouldn't have cared about the game. I would have gone with him." "I know. He said he thought I'd rather stay home." "He thought." "Yes." We were quiet. "I don't want this to become you and me comparing notes on him," I said. "Neither do I. He will feel surrounded. He's creating the circle." "That may be true. It still won't help if we close it." Claire sighed. "What do you suggest? If something involves me, ask me. If it involves you, make him ask you. And if it's between the two of you, don't bring it here unless you want advice you may dislike. That sounds annoyingly healthy. I've had time." She laughed, then said, "He really does think he's helping." "I know. That doesn't make it harmless. I know that too." By early November, my Sundays no longer belonged automatically to Daniel. Some weeks I invited them. Other weeks, June summoned me to lunch or a movie. Once I stayed home and read until dark without speaking to anyone. That day was peaceful, until it wasn't. At 6, I opened the refrigerator and saw half a pie I had made for no one. Loneliness arrived without knocking and sat down at my table. I almost called Daniel. Instead, I cut one slice, wrapped the rest, and took it to June's house. She opened the door in slippers and said, "Either somebody died or that's Apple." "Apple. Come in." It was not a replacement for my son. I did not want one. It was simply another room where I was allowed to exist without earning my place through usefulness. 2 nights later, June invited me to a Sunday potluck before Thanksgiving. 4 women from the old office were coming, along with June's neighbor, who had recently divorced and apparently made dangerous cornbread. I said yes. Daniel called the following evening. "I talked to Dad, Barbara, and Claire's parents," he said. "Everyone can do the Sunday before Thanksgiving for your autumn dinner." I held the phone away from my ear for a second, looking at it as if the problem might be visible on the screen. "My autumn dinner? You always have everybody before the holidays. No one asked me. I'm asking now. No, you're reporting attendance." He went quiet. "We finally found a day that works," he said. "It doesn't work for me. What do you have?" "A potluck at June's." He laughed, waiting for me to join him. I did not. "You're serious," he said. "Yes. You'd rather go to a potluck than have the family here. That isn't the choice I made. I accepted an invitation. You made family plans in my house without speaking to me. Mom, everyone's expecting it. Then you better call everyone. What am I supposed to tell them?" I looked at the calendar on my wall. June's name was written across Sunday in blue ink. "Tell them I declined," I said. "This time it'll be true." Daniel did not appreciate the distinction. "That's cute," he said. "It wasn't meant to be. You've been waiting to use that line." "No, I would have preferred never needing it." He paced when he was angry. I could hear his steps through the phone, the dull shift from carpet to hardwood and back. "So what now?" he asked. "I call 10 people and say my mother found a better offer? You tell them you invited them to something before asking the person who was supposed to host. That makes me sound like an idiot. I can't help the facts with their tone." He gave a bitter laugh. "This is punishment." "No. You're making me explain this to everybody. You made plans with everybody. You know I assumed. That is the problem. What if I'd asked you first? I would have checked my calendar. Before June invited me, I probably would have said yes. So cancel on June." "No." "Why?" "She'll understand." "I understand too, Daniel. That's why you keep choosing me to absorb the inconvenience." He stopped pacing. For a moment, all I could hear was his breathing. "You're choosing coworkers over family," he said, "friends. and I'm choosing to keep my word. She asked you to bring potato salad. I'm bringing pie. That's not the point. No, the point is that her invitation became real when I accepted it. Mine should too. He was silent long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "Fine, we'll do it here." "Who is we?" "Claire and me." "Have you asked Claire?" Another silence. "I'm going to," he said. "Good, you're not invited. That would be easier to believe if you'd asked Claire." He hung up. My first impulse was to call back. My second was to call Claire and warn her. I did neither. I stood in the kitchen with the phone in my hand, staring at June's name on the calendar. Until then, the potluck had seemed pleasant but optional. A few hours of cornbread and office gossip. Now it had become a flag planted in contested ground. I resented Daniel for making it symbolic. I resented myself for letting it become so. Barbara called 12 minutes later. "Daniel says you canceled the family dinner." "I did not cancel it. He says you're going to a party instead." "I had no dinner planned. We have done it at your house for 9 years. That does not make the house self-booking." Barbara lowered her voice as if someone might overhear us through the phone. "Is this still about the rehearsal? It's about Daniel inviting people to my home without asking me. He assumed because you always do it." "Yes." "Well, I understand why. Then you can host." She inhaled sharply. "My dining room is being painted. Convenient. I don't cook for crowds. Neither did I until everyone started coming. That's different. You enjoy it." I did. The past tense quieted her. "Are you saying you don't enjoy having us anymore?" she asked. This was how boundaries became trials. A single no was placed under bright lights and interrogated until it confessed to a much larger crime. "I'm saying I accepted another invitation." Barbara was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, some of the outrage had drained out. "Are we still doing Friday dinner? If you mean the Friday after Thanksgiving, yes. I asked Daniel and Claire. Stephen and Linda are coming too. You're welcome if you would like to come." "You're asking me now?" "I am. What are you making?" "I haven't decided." "So I'm supposed to accept without a menu? That is the risk." She sighed. "Fine, I'll come." "Would you bring rolls?" "What kind?" "The kind you want to eat. You're very strange lately. I'll write down that you accepted." Stephen called that evening. He began with, "I'm not getting involved," which was his traditional announcement that he had already chosen a side. "Then we can talk about the weather. Daniel is upset. It might rain. He thinks you're dragging the wedding issue into everything. Cold front from the north. Margaret." "What would you like me to say?" "That you know he didn't mean any harm. I know that." "And there is no and." He exhaled impatiently. "You've made your point. Everyone knows you won't be taken for granted. I'm not staging a demonstration. I have plans. You have plans because you're proving you have a life outside the family. I do have a life outside the family." "Of course you do." He said it in the tone people use when agreeing that someone owns a decorative bird bath. "Stephen, do you know what Daniel had planned for the dinner?" "That meal you make with the apples." "Pork loin." "Yes. I haven't bought a pork loin. I haven't made a shopping list. I haven't invited anyone. He announced a gathering in my house, then called me unreasonable when I wasn't available to produce it. He was trying to keep a tradition. He was trying to keep the result. The work was apparently traditional too. You could have told him that without refusing." I did tell him. He heard the refusal. Stephen went quiet. That sentence had reached him. For most of our marriage, I had explained what I needed, and he had remembered only the moment when I stopped providing it. "I think you're enjoying this," he said. "Enjoying what?" "Having everyone come after you." The cruelty was so neat that I almost admired it. "No," I said. "I'm learning how many people will chase a woman who stops carrying their bags." He ended the call soon after that. Claire waited until the next morning. "Did Daniel ask you?" I said when I answered. "He did." "And our table seats 6 if nobody has elbows. How many people did he invite?" 12. Barbara takes two places emotionally. Claire laughed despite herself. He says we can rent tables. You can. He says we can cook. You can. He says it'll be fun. It might be. You're not going to save us, are you? I have folding chairs. That's not what I asked. No. She was quiet, but she did not sound angry. We're hosting, she said. I told him if this is so important, we should learn what it takes. That seems fair. He's currently researching how long a frozen turkey takes to thaw. Tell him not to leave it in the garage. I thought you weren't saving us. That's public safety. They borrowed 4 folding chairs, my roasting pan, and a gravy boat Daniel had always claimed was shaped like a duck. It was not shaped like a duck. It had a graceful handle that some people lacked the imagination to appreciate. I made him come pick everything up. He arrived Thursday evening and carried the chairs to his car without coming inside. I stood on the porch, holding the roasting pan. Do you want my thermometer? I asked. We bought one. Good. Claire's making stuffing. Good. Dad's bringing wine. Barbara's bringing rolls. Excellent. He took the pan. June's potluck better be amazing, he said. It could be terrible. Then why go? Because I said I would. He looked at me as if that answer were both infuriating and impossible to argue with. I'll bring your things back next week, he said. Wash the gravy boat by hand, I know. Not in the dishwasher. I know, Mom. He put the roasting pan into his trunk and drove away. Sunday arrived gray and cold. I baked 2 apple pies because making one felt unnatural. I kept one for Friday and took the other to June's house. Her dining room held 8 adults, mismatched chairs, and enough food for a minor disaster. The dangerous cornbread belonged to a woman named Colleen, who wore red glasses and had put jalapenos in it without warning anyone. June served potato salad in a crystal bowl because she said her mother had saved it for good and then died without defining good. I laughed. I ate too much. I listened to people tell stories in which I had no assigned role. At 3:30, I checked my phone beneath the table. No messages. June noticed. Emergency? She asked. No. Then stop staring at it like it owes you rent. I put it face down. At 4:15, Claire sent a photograph. Daniel stood in their kitchen wearing an apron over his shirt. Flour streaked one cheek. Behind him, the counter was covered with bowls, open packages, and what appeared to be a saucepan balanced on a stack of cookbooks. He looked furious. The caption said, "Your son has learned that gravy is not a beverage you simply purchase warm." I smiled before the ache arrived. A second photograph showed their table extended with a folding card table at one end. Stephen was pouring wine. Linda was lighting candles. Barbara held a roll up to the camera, as if filing a complaint. Ellen and Paul were squeezed against the wall. Everyone was there. My chair wasn't empty. There had never been one. I typed, "Looks wonderful." Claire answered, "It is. Also a mess. I wanted to be in the mess. I wanted Daniel to complain that I was using the wrong knife. I wanted Barbara to ask whether the rolls were fresh. I wanted my gravy boat back on my table instead of shining beneath someone else's lights. June began cutting my pie. I put the phone away and stayed. Missing them did not mean I had made the wrong decision. It meant the boundary cost what boundaries cost when they mattered. Daniel returned the chairs Wednesday evening. Claire came with him, carrying the washed roasting pan and the gravy boat wrapped in a dish towel. The gravy boat survived, she said. I was worried. Daniel set down 2 chairs at a time. Everyone said dinner was great. I heard. Dad stayed until 9. That is late for him. He and Linda helped clean. That is a genuine holiday miracle. Daniel did not smile. Claire touched his arm. I'm taking these to the kitchen. She left us in the hall. I thought you'd change your mind, he said. About what, Sunday? I thought you'd show up. You told me I wasn't invited. I didn't mean it. I assumed you meant what you said. He looked at the floor. Did you miss us? The honest answer felt dangerous. Yes. His head came up. I missed you, I said. I still kept my plans. Was it worth it? That isn't how I measure people. I'm trying to understand. No, you're trying to find out whether I suffered enough to prove I wasn't punishing you. His face hardened. Maybe I want to know whether any of this hurts you. It does. He looked almost relieved. That hurt me more than the question. Friday dinner at my house was quieter than the wedding brunch and easier than the Sunday I had missed. Claire brought a salad. Linda brought white wine. Barbara brought rolls and announced that Daniel's were better, which no one believed. Stephen arrived 12 minutes late. Daniel noticed and did not pretend he hadn't. After dessert, the others carried dishes into the kitchen. Daniel stood at the sink beside me, drying the gravy boat with the care of someone handling an artifact. I didn't know how much work it was, he said. Dinner? All of it. Asking everybody, checking the time, finding chairs, Dad changing his answer twice, Ellen needing to know what she could bring and then bringing something else. That sounds like Ellen. I thought you liked doing it. I did like it. He waited. I took the gravy boat and placed it in the cabinet. Liking something doesn't mean it happens by itself, I said. Claire entered carrying plates. That might be the smartest thing anyone has said this month. Daniel looked at her. I know, he said. But his voice had gone distant again, and I understood that learning the weight of a thing was not the same as forgiving the person who finally let you carry it. For a while, careful became Daniel's new form of distance. He called before coming over. He asked whether Sunday worked. He said, "Would you like us to bring anything?" With the stiff precision of a man speaking to a customs officer. I had wanted him to ask. I had not wanted every question to sound like evidence that he was asking. One Sunday, I told him to stop being so formal. He looked up from peeling potatoes. "I'm trying to respect your boundaries. You sound like you're reading them from a card. I don't know what tone you want." "Your own." My own tone got me in trouble. Your tone didn't tell people I declined. He dropped the peeler into the sink. "See, we can't have one conversation without going back there. We were discussing the way you speak to me now, which only changed because of what happened." Claire carried a bowl of green beans into the room and looked from him to me. "Should I go outside and come in again?" she asked. Daniel wiped his hands on a towel. "No, we're fine." Neither of us corrected him. That became another kind of silence. Christmas was polite enough to make me miss ordinary irritation. I asked everyone directly before setting the date. Linda brought white wine. Barbara brought rolls because she had decided that was now her contribution to history. Ellen and Paul came for dessert, and Stephen arrived early for the first time in recorded memory. Daniel watched me greet each person as if I were demonstrating a system designed to expose him. During dinner, Stephen complained that no one had reminded him we were exchanging small gifts. "Linda reminded you," Barbara said. She said not to go overboard. "That is not the same as nothing," Linda told him. Stephen looked toward Daniel for support. Daniel concentrated on his potatoes. I saw the effort it took for him not to translate Linda's sentence into something his father would like better. For a moment, I was proud of him. Then Stephen said, "Well, apparently everyone's decided I'm on my own now." Daniel's fork stopped. I knew that sentence would work on him. Stephen knew it too. "Dad," Daniel began. "Nobody's saying," Linda put down her glass. "I am saying I told you." The table went still. Daniel looked at her, then at his father. He took a breath. "Okay," he said. "Then you told him." Stephen stared as if his son had refused to pull him from a burning car. Barbara passed the rolls. Progress is exhausting. The moment ended without anyone dying. After the holidays, the wedding photographs arrived in an online gallery. Claire came to my house one Saturday with 2 coffees and her laptop. Daniel was playing golf with Stephen, and she said she wanted help choosing pictures for an album. "Are you sure you want my opinions?" I asked. "No, I want someone to blame when I order 80 pages. We sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. There were photographs I had not seen. Ellen helping Claire with an earring. Paul alone in the conservatory before the ceremony, touching the back of a chair. Linda holding Stephen's face while fixing his tie. Daniel standing with Miles near a window, looking down at the green cufflink box in his hand. Then came the mother-son dance. In one picture, Daniel was speaking into my ear. My face was turned toward his shoulder, but I knew the exact sentence he had been saying. "I don't know how to fix this." Claire studied the image. "What was he telling you?" "That my shoes looked comfortable." She gave me a level look. "I'm not sharing every conversation I have with my son." "Fair." She marked the photograph as a favorite anyway. We chose the family picture beneath the arch. We chose one of Daniel and me laughing before the dance and one of Claire showing me the repaired loop on her dress. She included a close view of my mother's table runner, champagne stain not yet visible. "You should keep that one," I said. "It'll be in the album. I mean, print it for yourself." "Why?" "Because one day you'll forget what was on the tables. You'll remember the people but not what your hands touched." She looked at me for a moment, then added the photograph to a separate list. That afternoon was easy. No one needed us to compare Daniel's stories or decide whose wound was larger. Claire told me about a terrible manager at work. I told her June had begun dating her neighbor after spending 6 months complaining that he parked too close to her mailbox. At 4, Daniel called Claire. She answered on speaker because her hands were on the keyboard. "How's the album?" he asked. "Your mother wants to cut every photograph where she's blinking." I blink naturally. "You blink aggressively," I said. Daniel laughed. For a few minutes, the three of us sounded like ourselves again. Then he asked Claire whether she had spoken to Linda about his father's birthday. "No," Claire said. "Why?" "No reason. She's planning something." "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet. Maybe golf." "Am I invited?" "I'm sure you are." That sounded reassuring. "I'll get the details." After they hung up, Claire looked at me. "Do you know anything?" "No, neither do I." We returned to photographs. The details arrived 3 weeks later in the form of Linda standing in Claire and Daniel's kitchen with a grocery list. I learned that part from Claire afterward. Linda had stopped by to discuss food for Stephen's birthday weekend. She and Stephen had rented a house near Lake Ashby for 2 nights. Barbara was coming. So were Marcus and his wife. Linda wanted to know whether Claire still avoided mushrooms. Claire said, "I didn't know I was coming." Linda thought she was joking. Daniel had told Claire the weekend was a father-son golf trip. He had told Linda that Claire might attend dinner Saturday, but couldn't stay because of work. When Linda asked why the stories were different, Daniel said the plans had changed. They had not. Claire came to my house that evening without coffee or a laptop. She stood on the porch in her work coat, hair damp from the rain. "Can I come in?" "Yes." She walked straight to the kitchen and sat at the table. I put the kettle on without asking what she wanted. "Daniel speaks fluent imaginary woman," she said. I sat across from her. "He says he thought I wouldn't want to spend a weekend with Stephen and Marcus talking about golf. Would you?" "No. I would rather eat my own sleeve. That isn't the point." "Exactly." The kettle began to hiss. I turned it off before it whistled and made tea. Claire took hers black because she had forgotten to tell me otherwise. "He didn't want to go for the whole weekend either," she said. "That's what came out after an hour. He wanted to drive up Saturday, have dinner, and leave Sunday morning. He thought if I came, Linda would expect us Friday. So he made you unavailable. He said he was protecting my time. That sounds familiar. I told him not to use you as a comparison." "Good. I used you as a comparison." "That was less good." Claire wrapped both hands around her cup. "He said this is different from the rehearsal because he wasn't excluding me. He was trying to avoid committing both of us to a weekend. Did you ask him why he didn't tell Linda that?" "Yes." He said she'd pressure him. "And if he told Stephen?" "He said his father would take it personally. So he put the refusal in your mouth." She nodded. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. I thought of my phone in the silverware drawer, Daniel asking me not to call Claire because he could handle it. "Have you told him what you need?" I asked. "I told him he does not get to translate me anymore." "Good." He said I'm making him sound controlling. "What did you say?" "I said I'm describing control." I winced. "Too much?" "Accurate, but sharp. I'm angry." "You're allowed. He says everyone does this. Couples make excuses for each other." Sometimes they do. Do you think I'm overreacting? The question was dangerous in a new way. Agreement could make us allies against him. Disagreement could ask her to swallow the very thing I had refused to swallow. I think the weekend is small, I said. I think deciding what you said is not. He keeps saying he knew I wouldn't want to go. Knowing isn't asking. I told him that too. She pushed her tea away. I don't want to go home yet, then don't. I also don't want him thinking I came here to build a case with you. Then call your mother. Claire gave me a tired look. My mother will arrive with an overnight bag and a locksmith. That is a concern. I can go to a hotel. Don't turn one argument into theater. Finish your tea. Drive around. Go home when you're ready. She looked toward the living room. Can I sit here for a while? Yes. We moved to the couch and watched half of a cooking competition with the volume low. Claire did not talk about Daniel again. At 9, she stood. I'm going home. Good. You don't know if that's good. No, but you chose it. She hugged me and left. Daniel called 7 minutes later. What did Claire say to you? Hello, Daniel. Mom, please. She said you told your father and Linda that she couldn't attend the whole birthday weekend because of work. I said she might not be able to. She told me what she heard, and you agreed with her. I agreed that you shouldn't answer for her. He laughed without humor. Of course. What does that mean? It means I knew she'd go to you. I told her to call Ellen, but she came to you. Yes. So now the two of you get to decide I'm a manipulator. I have not called you that. You don't have to. Claire didn't come here to insult you. She came because she was hurt. She's acting like I betrayed her over a weekend neither of us wants. Then why didn't you say you didn't want it? His voice rose. Because Dad finally asks me to do something and I'm supposed to tell him no? You are allowed to say no to your father. You make that sound easy. No, Daniel. I make it sound necessary. That's convenient for you. What is? You get to draw boundaries after spending my entire life telling me family shows up. The words took the air from the room. I sat down slowly. I told you that you didn't have to choose between your parents. You made sure I never had to choose you. You were always there, and you resent me for it? I don't know. The shout broke into silence. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was lower. Claire says she can't trust what I tell people about her. Can she? He hung up. I sat on the couch long after the television had gone dark. At 10:30, headlights crossed the front window. A car door slammed, then Daniel knocked. Not with his key. Not the quick tap he had used since learning to ask. 3 hard knocks, followed by silence. When I opened the door, my son stood in the cold without a coat. I didn't know where else to go, he said. I stepped aside. Daniel walked past me, bringing cold air into the hall. His shirt was untucked on one side, and the soles of his shoes left dark marks on the floor. Where's your coat? At home. You drove here without a coat? The car has heat. That is not how coats work. He turned toward the kitchen, then stopped as if waiting to be invited farther. Come in, I said. He sat at the table in the chair he had used since he was tall enough for his feet to touch the floor. I sat across from him. The clock over the stove ticked. The refrigerator motor started. A branch scraped the side of the house in the wind. Daniel looked toward the counter where a plate held 2 slices of leftover apple pie beneath plastic wrap. I did not offer him any. Aren't you going to ask what happened? He said. You'll tell me if you want to. He gave a short laugh. You really have changed. Some parts. You used to ask. You used to answer by telling me whether you wanted pie. His eyes moved toward the plate again. I stayed seated. Claire said she has to verify everything I tell her now, he said. That sounds painful. She called Linda, right in front of me. What did she ask? She asked exactly what I'd said about the weekend. Linda told her. Was Linda accurate? That's not the point. It is one of them. Daniel stood and went to the sink. He turned on the faucet, rinsed a clean glass, filled it, and drank half without breathing. She made me sound calculated, he said. Linda, Claire. She laid out the whole thing like I'd planned some scheme. I didn't want a 2-night birthday production. Claire wouldn't have wanted it either. I tried to keep it simple. For whom? He set down the glass. Please don't do that. Do what? Turn everything into a question where there's only one acceptable answer. I don't know the answer. Yes, you do. What do you want me to say, Daniel? That you understand. I understand that you didn't want to disappoint your father. Exactly. I understand that you decided disappointing your wife would be easier. His jaw tightened. I didn't disappoint her. She didn't want to go. You keep returning to the outcome. She is angry about the method. The method? Yes. You make it sound clinical. You made it efficient. He walked into the living room, then back into the kitchen. He was pacing again, the same path I had heard over the phone. I apologized, he said. What did you say? I said, I was sorry I didn't make the plans clearer. That is not what you did. I also said I should have checked with her. Better. She asked why I told Linda she couldn't get away from work. What did you say? That I thought it would be more believable than telling Dad we didn't want to spend the whole weekend. You gave your father a reason he could respect and made Claire pay for it. She has work. Did work prevent her from going? No. Then her work is not your alibi. He dragged the chair back and sat down hard. I came here because I thought you'd understand what Dad is like. I do. You know what happens if you tell him no? He gets offended. He withdraws. Yes. He decides you don't want him, and then you don't hear from him for weeks, maybe months. I remember. You act like it's easy to stand there and let that happen. I don't think it's easy. You did it. Eventually. His face changed. We did not often talk about the last years of my marriage to Stephen. Daniel knew the visible facts. His father moved out. I kept the house. Stephen married Linda much later. We had become civilized enough to attend the same events. Civilized was the word families used when everyone agreed not to describe the fire. I spent 11 years trying to keep your father from withdrawing, I said. I changed plans, changed words, changed the temperature of rooms. I told him what people meant instead of what they said. I told people what he felt instead of making him say it. Daniel looked down, and when he left, I continued. I did the same thing for you. He forgot to call, and I said he was busy. He canceled a weekend, and I found something fun for us to do. He missed your driving test, and I ordered pizza. Daniel's head came up. I remember you never mentioned it. Neither did you. No. The branch scraped the house again. I thought I was protecting you, I said. Weren't you? Maybe at first. Then I was protecting him from becoming the father he had chosen to be. Daniel rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. He was supposed to take me to buy a car after the test, he said. I know. I waited until 5. I know. You said he had an emergency meeting. He was playing golf. Daniel stared at me. I had kept that small truth for 24 years, long after it could protect anyone. How do you know? He asked. His sister called looking for him. Barbara thought he was with us. A muscle moved in Daniel's cheek. Why didn't you tell me? You were 17. You had already figured out he wasn't coming. That's not an answer. No, it's an explanation. He looked toward the window. In the dark glass, I could see both of us reflected at the table. I kept waiting for him to try, Daniel said. I know, and now he is. Sometimes. More than before. Yes. You say that like it doesn't count. It counts. It does not require you to hand him someone else's no. Daniel closed his eyes. I thought if Claire was the reason, he wouldn't take it personally. Claire took it personally. I didn't think she'd find out like that. I leaned back. There are admissions that sound small until you hear what has been placed inside them. You didn't think she'd find out, I repeated. That came out wrong. No. Let it stay out. He stood again, but this time he did not pace. He gripped the back of the chair. I'm not some monster, he said. I have never called you one. You look at me now like every sentence is suspect. I'm listening more carefully. That's worse. It probably is. He stared at me. his eyes bright with anger or shame. Maybe both. "What happened to Grace?" he asked. "You used to believe people could make mistakes. I still do. You used to let things go. I used to carry them somewhere you couldn't see." His hands loosened on the chair. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No, you learned to expect it." He sat slowly. The apple pie remained on the counter. I could smell cinnamon now that the kitchen had warmed around him. "Claire said she doesn't know when I'm speaking for her and when I'm telling the truth," he said. "What did you say?" "I said she was being dramatic. That must have gone well. She asked me to leave the room, and you left the house. I didn't know what else to do. You could have stayed in another room. She didn't want me there." "Did she say that?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. "She said she needed space," he admitted. "Those are not the same words." "No." The recognition settled between us. He covered his face with both hands. "I do it before I know I'm doing it," he said. "That may be true." "How do I stop something I don't know I'm doing?" "You stop treating your interpretation like permission." He lowered his hands. "That sounds like a phrase you practiced. It's nearly 11. Nothing about this evening was practiced. For the first time since he arrived, he smiled. It was brief and miserable, but real. I looked at my son and saw the adult man, the abandoned 17-year-old, and the child who had believed one parent stayed because staying cost nothing. I could understand every part of him without allowing any of those parts to speak for me. "Why was it so easy?" I asked. "What?" "At the wedding. Why was I the one you made absent?" He looked away. "Mom, I don't want the version about formal dinners. I don't want Linda or tension or room capacity. Why was I the person you could turn into someone who didn't want to be there?" He pressed his palms flat on the table. "I told you." "No, you explained your father. I'm asking about me." Silence filled the kitchen. Daniel's breathing became uneven. Finally, he said, "Because I knew you'd still come Saturday." The words were almost a whisper. I did not move. "I knew you'd be angry," he continued. "I knew it would hurt you. But I knew you wouldn't miss the wedding. Dad might have refused the whole weekend if I pushed him. Claire's parents would have thought we were a mess. Linda might have stayed home. You were the only person I knew would still be there, so you spent me." His face crumpled slightly. "I didn't think of it that way. I know. I thought you would forgive me. You expected me to." "Yes. Because you trusted my love." He nodded. "And you treated it as the safest thing to risk." He looked at me then. There was no defense left in his face, which did not make the truth kinder. "I'm sorry," he said. This apology sounded different because it did not reach toward me for immediate relief. I let it remain where he had put it. "When your father left," I said, "I made sure you knew my love was permanent. I wanted that to make you secure. It did." "Permanent love is not permission, Daniel." He lowered his head. "You can be sure I love you," I said. "You cannot be sure I will accept whatever you do with that love." A tear fell onto the table. He wiped it away quickly, irritated by it. "Do you want me to go?" he asked. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Because you asked." He nodded. I stood and took 2 plates from the cabinet. "You don't have to feed me," he said. "I know." I cut the pie. He watched me set a slice in front of him, then said, "Milk first, for tea." He filled the kettle. When it boiled, he made 2 cups. Milk first in mine. No sugar. He placed the handle toward my right hand. We ate without talking. When only crumbs remained, Daniel took out his phone. "I should tell Claire where I am. Yes." He typed, stopped, erased something, then typed again. "I don't know what to say." "Say where you are. Ask whether she wants you home." He looked at me. "What if she says no?" "Then you tolerate the answer." He sent the message. Claire replied less than a minute later. Daniel read it twice. She said, "Come home when you're ready to listen." "Are you ready?" "I don't know." That is not a question I can answer for you." He put the phone in his pocket and carried both plates to the sink. At the door, he turned back. "I told them you declined because I couldn't say I chose to leave you out." The sentence hung there, plain and unprotected. "Yes," I said. He nodded once. Then he went home to tell his wife the truth without taking me along to translate it. The next morning, I found a message from Claire sent at 12:16. "He's home. We're talking tomorrow. Thank you for not trying to solve us." I read it twice, then wrote, "You're welcome." Daniel's message arrived at 8. I told her the whole truth. No wrong call, no misunderstanding. She's still angry. I'm going to let her be. That last sentence told me more than an apology would have. I answered, "Good." He did not call for 3 days. On the 4th, he asked whether I would come to dinner at Ellen and Paul's on Sunday. "Did they invite me?" I asked. "Yes." "Did you ask them?" "Yes." "Did Claire hear them?" "Mom, I'm checking." He laughed, though not comfortably. "Claire heard them. Then I'd like to come." Ellen served roast beef in a dining room large enough to explain her confidence about hosting events. Paul opened 2 bottles of wine because he could not remember which one went with beef and decided comparison was educational. Claire sat beside Daniel. I sat across from them. We had made it through salad when Daniel set down his fork. "I need to correct something," he said. Ellen looked toward the kitchen. "Is the meat undercooked?" "No." "Then it can wait until dessert." "It shouldn't." The table became quiet. Daniel looked at me, then away. That was better than looking to me for permission. "Mom didn't decline the rehearsal dinner," he said. "She was never asked." Ellen's expression softened. "We know." "I know you know now. But you heard it from Claire and from Mom. You should hear it from me." Paul put down his wine glass. Daniel continued. "I told Claire that Mom wasn't comfortable going. Then I told you she'd declined. Neither was true. Dad said Linda felt awkward about the dinner, and I was afraid he wouldn't come if I pushed him. I thought Mom would forgive me, so I made her the one who didn't want to be there." Nothing moved for several seconds. Ellen looked at me. I kept my hands folded in my lap. "I'm sorry," Daniel said to her. "You were hosting, and I used your dinner to lie to people." Ellen nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying it." Paul asked, "Did Stephen actually threaten not to come?" "No." "So you guessed?" "Yes." "That's an expensive habit." Ellen gave her husband a look. "What?" Paul said. "Emotionally expensive." Claire reached beneath the table and took Daniel's hand. She did not smile at him. She simply held on. No one applauded. No one announced that healing had occurred. Ellen asked if the roast beef was getting cold, and we resumed eating. Afterward, while Paul loaded the dishwasher incorrectly and Ellen followed behind correcting him, Daniel came beside me at the counter. "I told Dad yesterday," he said. "How did that go?" He said I made him sound manipulative. That phrase is getting popular. He says he never asked me to exclude you. He didn't. Daniel glanced at me. "You're agreeing with him?" "I have always agreed with that part." He put it on me. "It was on you." He flinched. I wanted to soften the sentence, but he nodded. "I told him that," he said. "I said he shouldn't have used Linda's feelings to pressure me, but the decision was mine." What did he say? That I was rewriting history to please Claire. And then he left. "Where were you?" "His house." "So he asked you to leave?" "No." He walked upstairs and closed the bedroom door. I pictured my 41-year-old son standing alone in Stephen's pale living room while his father withdrew in the most literal way available. "What did you do?" I asked. "I put my coffee cup in the dishwasher and came home." "Did you run it?" Daniel stared at me. "Sorry," I said. "Wrong lesson." He laughed, and the tension broke. Stephen did not call him for 17 days. I knew because Daniel almost called me on the 8th. My phone rang after dinner. When I answered, he said, "Have you heard from Dad? Not since Sunday." "Oh," I waited. "He usually calls you when he's angry with me," Daniel said. "Sometimes." "Could you?" He stopped. Could I what? Nothing. I could hear him breathing. I want to ask you to find out if he's still mad, he said. I know, I'm not going to. All right, what if he just disappears again? That would hurt. I know it would hurt. I'm not minimizing it. He was quiet. Do you think he will? He asked. I don't know. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He gave a small, unhappy laugh. I suppose I asked for that. No, you asked a question. Stephen called on the 17th day and invited Daniel to lunch as if no silence had occurred. Daniel accepted, but he did not pretend the silence had been accidental. I'm not going to punish you by disappearing, he told him. I need you not to do it to me. Stephen said he had been busy. Daniel said, then next time, tell me you're busy. I heard about the conversation from Linda, who called to ask whether I wanted to attend a concert with her and Barbara. We had not become friends exactly, but after the wedding, she occasionally invited me to things that Stephen considered too long or too loud. How did he take it? I asked. He ordered dessert. That bad? He only eats dessert when he needs an activity. We went to the concert. Barbara complained about the parking. Linda touched my forearm 6 times, and I enjoyed myself. Daniel's improvement was not a straight line. In February, he told Barbara I was too busy to help her choose curtains. I had never been asked. The difference was that he called me 20 minutes later. I did it again, he said. Apparently. She asked whether you'd come over Saturday, and I said you were busy because I didn't want her bothering you. I might have gone. I know. Did you call her back? Yes. I told her I answered for you and shouldn't have. What did she say? That the 3 of us are exhausting. She's right. Do you want to help with curtains? No, Daniel laughed. Can I tell her? No, I'll call her. I did. Barbara selected gold curtains that made her living room look like a theater lobby. She loved them. At Easter, Stephen invited everyone to brunch at his house. When he asked Daniel whether Claire would bring a casserole, Daniel turned to her. Would you like to answer that? Claire said. No. Stephen blinked. Daniel said nothing. Linda brought the casserole. The moment was so small that no one else noticed it. I did. Sunday dinners continued, but not every Sunday. Sometimes Daniel and Claire came to my house. Sometimes I went to theirs. Sometimes June called with plans, and I accepted without checking whether someone might need me. The first free Sunday of spring, I woke to rain and felt the old loneliness gathering. I nearly made soup for 3 people and waited for Daniel to notice the weather. Instead, I called him. Are you and Claire free for dinner? I don't know. Let me ask her. He put down the phone. I heard their voices in the background but could not make out the words. When he returned, he said, We have plans with Ellen and Paul. Disappointment moved through me, quick and childish. All right, I said, but we're free Tuesday. Tuesday works. It did. That was another thing I had to learn. Asking did not guarantee the answer I wanted. If I expected Daniel to tolerate my no, I had to tolerate his. Claire and I built a relationship that no longer traveled through him. She called me about work, recipes, and once about a terrible haircut she needed someone to confirm was terrible. I told her it was not terrible. It is, she said. Then why ask? I wanted comfort. You called the wrong woman. She laughed. I absolutely did not. She and Daniel had hard conversations I was not invited into. Occasionally, I saw the evidence in the way they spoke. Do you want to go? Claire would ask him. I think you do, he would begin, then stop. Sorry. I don't. Do you? Sometimes they discovered neither of them wanted the thing they had been arranging for the other. Sometimes they wanted opposite things and had to disappoint each other without calling anyone cruel. Once Daniel told me the silence after a truthful answer still felt like danger. What do? I asked. Wait. And? Usually somebody starts talking again. He sounded surprised every time. By summer, the cream wedding card still stood on the bookcase in their apartment. Claire had framed the photograph of my mother's table runner. The family picture hung in their hallway. My copy sat in a drawer for months. I took it out one afternoon while looking for stamps. There we were beneath the arch, laughing before any of us had finished being angry. Stephen's shoulder touched mine. Linda stood at the edge, but not outside it. Claire and Daniel held the center. I placed the photograph on my mantel. That did not mean everything was fine. It meant the day belonged to me too. The week before their first anniversary, Daniel called while I was replacing the batteries in my kitchen clock. "Do you have your calendar?" "Somewhere." "Claire and I are having dinner next Saturday at Marlowe's. 7 o'clock, just a small table. Her parents, you, Dad, and Linda, Barbara, if she promises not to discuss the bread." "That's impossible." "I know, but we're trying." I found my calendar beneath a stack of mail. "We'd like you to come," he said. "I haven't told anyone you're coming. I'm asking." I looked at Saturday. June had mentioned a play but had not bought tickets. Linda had left a message about the concert schedule. There were possibilities where once there had been only availability. "You don't have to answer now," Daniel said. I smiled. "What?" "Nothing. I can call tomorrow." "No, I'm checking." He waited. The pause belonged to me. He did not fill it with reassurance, persuasion, or a version of what I probably wanted. "I'd like to come," I said. "Good. What should I wear?" "It's not formal." That was not my question. He laughed. "Claire's wearing a green dress. I'm wearing a jacket. Then I'll find something. Do you want me to pick you up?" "No, I'll drive." "All right. And Daniel?" "Yes, thank you for asking." His voice changed slightly. "Thank you for answering." When I arrived at Marlowe's the following Saturday, the others had not yet come. Daniel and Claire stood near the entrance beneath a row of warm brass lights. Claire wore green. Daniel wore the same navy jacket he had worn to ask her parents for their blessing. He saw me through the glass and opened the door. "You came," he said. There was no surprise in it this time, only welcome. "You asked?" I said. Claire hugged me, then took Daniel's arm as the hostess led us toward the dining room. At the table, Daniel stopped beside a chair and looked at me. "Would you like to sit here?" It was a simple place, halfway between Claire and Linda, with a view of the windows. No symbolism had been assigned to it. No one had decided what I preferred. I pulled out the chair. "Yes," I said, "I would."